To take it from here, I'd like to invite on stage our session's moderator, Rajdeep Sardesai, consulting editor, India Today Television.
Hello and welcome once again to the India Today Conclave. Few, if any, constitutional posts at the moment in the country carry the weight of public expectations and the microscope of public scrutiny as much as that of the Chief Justice of India and, dare one say, the Supreme Court itself. Not a day passes when the apex court doesn't make the headlines in some form or the other. So how do those who have worn what some might argue is now a crown of thorns see the role of the Supreme Court and the Chief Justice of India in particular? Today we'll be listening to three Chief Justices of India, two former recent Chief Justices and the current Chief Justice in the course of this day. Please therefore welcome our first guest, Justice S.A. Bobde, Chief Justice of India from November 2019 to April 2021. Justice Bobde, welcome to the India Today Conclave. Am I right in suggesting that the Chief Justice's post today is a crown of thorns, constantly under scrutiny and therefore seemingly under immense pressure as well?
Well, the thorns, if any, are poked by the media.
I see.
It is a difficult place to be in, the Chief Justice of India. But, and it is a heavy responsibility. There's too much competition for the court's ears. And obviously everybody wants to win his case. But I'm saying this frankly, without any disrespect. The problems really arise from the somewhat irresponsible comments judges have to face. and the Chief Justice is always answerable. Anything that happens in the court is the Chief Justice who is responsible.
Now, you seem to be almost suggesting that Bechara Chief Justice.
No, not at
That,
all.
you know, look
I was just telling you, I was just carrying forward your analogy of thorns.
Yes.
I said the post itself, there's no thorns on the post. Those thorns are what you get from the onlookers.
Okay, the onlookers will probably turn around and say that the fact is many judgments in this country at the moment are tangled in political wars. You were, for example, part of the Ayodhya judgment. And the nature of the case, the kind of politics that had swirled around Ayodhya for decades meant inevitably whatever judgment you delivered, there was going to be some kind of a political fallout to it.
That's so in every case.
But is that part of the problem, that because the Supreme Court today increasingly finds itself tangled in taking up these political cases, whether it is Rafale, whether it is the Ayodhya judgment, because these cases come eventually to the Supreme Court, the court almost inevitably, and the Chief Justice inevitably finds himself caught in a political battle?
Well, I would like to say that the word label political can be attached to anything. I see nothing political about the Ayodhya case. The case, what we heard. There is probably nothing political about Rafale. It was a defense deal. Ayodhya was an issue about whether Lord Ram, amongst other things, Lord Ram was born in that place, etc., etc., etc. So I don't see, and the case has been going on since, the problem has been going on since pre-independence times. What is political about it except that politicians talk about it? Or some might want to derive political mileage from a controversy. We are not involved in politics as courts. We decide a case that comes up before us, brought to us by parties who have something to say and who have a claim, and we adjudicate that claim. What is politics in it?
So you didn't feel extra pressure while you all were hearing and eventually delivering the judgment in a case like Ayodhya?
No. Possibly a greater sense of, possibly some sense of anxiety on what it might, what effect it might have on the body politics to some extent, but not the political kind.
The reason I'm saying this, sir, is that there is a huge question mark over whether the Supreme Court is truly independent today. And that includes truly independent.
Independent of what?
Independent of executive interference or executive pressures. I quote a senior Supreme Court advocate, Dushyant Dave, he's also headed the Supreme Court Bar Association, said judges are scared of the Modi government and reluctant to rock the boat.
Well, I don't think I should respond to his views. I was entitled to his views, but I do not see any executive interference in the judicial process. I did not experience any. You could ask, you've invited other colleagues of mine today, you could ask them. You see, the way the executive can interfere is by having benches suitable to it in each case, and that doesn't happen. The benches, the roster is prepared by the Chief Justice of India, independent of any pressures.
But that itself has become contentious over times. You know how 4 judges staged a few years ago a remarkable press conference, an unprecedented press conference, where they questioned the manner in which allegedly bench fixing might have been taking place.
That press conference, I am not aware of the allegations of bench fixing, though there was something about the preparation of rosters.
Yeah, questioning over the role of the Supreme Court Chief Justice as master of the roster.
That, to my mind, is one of the most unfortunate events in the history of the Supreme Court of India. And I tried my best to see that it doesn't happen. And thereafter, I am saying this because some magazine has already written about my role there. And I did try to bring about a peace between the opposing points of view. I succeeded, party didn't succeed, but it's an unfortunate event. I don't want to, I don't support, I wouldn't have done it myself.
You believe it's an unfortunate, you're saying something important. You believe it's an event that should have never happened. It's an unfortunate event. You don't subscribe to the way it happened. Let me give you examples, since you say you don't want to respond to what an individual advocate's opinion is. Habeas corpus petitions of those who were arrested, for example, in Kashmir, after the setting aside of Article 370. They were kept pending for months. You didn't touch the electoral bonds issue, sir, which again is politically a hot potato. All of this is being interpreted to suggest that the court and the Chief Justice's office unwilling to take on the government. People were for months in jail, sir, under the Public Safety Act in Jammu and Kashmir, habeas corpus petitions filed, and the Supreme Court of India does not see urgency in that matter?
I don't think they were kept pending deliberately as you people see it or anybody else sees it. And one thing I must tell you in this context, I believe, and it is said to be a law of how the human mind works, and that law is that a suspicious person always finds what he's looking for. It is true in the domestic front, it is true in politics, it is true in the executive, it is true in the media, it is true everywhere. You always find what you're looking for.
I'm only giving you a reality, sir.
No,
Hundreds of innocent people possibly were in jail for months. Habeas corpus is the basic right that I have under the Constitution.
First of all, it was during the pandemic.
Yes.
It was during the pandemic. It was difficult to get matters heard. I can tell you, I was not ready for this question. I can tell you hundreds of cases where the courts asked parties, would you like to hear? And parties said, no, we cannot appear. Advocates said they cannot appear. And it happened that there was something about the CJI matters were also pending then.
That's right.
And they wanted those to be heard. Now that involves allowing 500 to 600 advocates to enter the courts. That was not possible. And some of them said, no, we want our matters tagged, we will not get them untagged. But frankly, I would have liked to answer this question with statistics, which I am not ready for.
Okay. You were Chief Justice also, sir, during the contentious, I'll come to COVID later, during the contentious farmer agitation. And you stayed the implementation of farm laws until further orders. Now, traditionally, the Supreme Court, sir, has been very wary of passing interim orders that stay laws passed by Parliament. And yet you did so.
Yes, I did.
Were you aware again that, like it or not, you were stepping into a political minefield? You see, the court seemed to be stepping into a political minefield. The media reacts and then you say, oh, the media is dragging us into...
political minefield? There was a law before us.
Yes.
There was a challenge to a law before us.
Yes.
We were seeking the government's response to the challenge. We were reading stories and watching stories on the television about people attacking each other. Forces attacking each other, people jumping onto the Red Fort on the Independence Day, I think. And
Republic Day.
Republic Day. So many violent instances. I had stated to the other side, I stated to the government, why don't you consider doing this? Why don't you consider withholding the laws? Because look at the consequence. There is a law on one side and there is a large-scale violence on the other side. What is important right now? And there was no response. So I consulted my colleagues and we were all of the unanimous opinion that this should be stayed. What's political about it?
Okay.
There was no election in the offing, and anyway, we have nothing to do with elections.
And you're very clear, at no stage has the judicial process been influenced, therefore, by the executive during your tenure.
Yes.
Okay. The tangle between the executive and judiciary, sir, over appointments. You were Chief Justice for almost 18 months, and during that period, not a single Supreme Court judge was appointed.
Yes.
Because the collegium system could not arrive at a consensus.
No, it is not because of the collegium system. It is because as a collegium, we were unable to arrive at a consensus. It is not because of the system. It is because we failed as a collegium to arrive at a consensus about the names.
Because a particular...
Or in some cases, about the order in which there should be an elevation.
Because there was a particular judge in your collegium who insisted that Justice Akhil Qureshi be elevated to the Supreme Court. The government didn't want his name.
Akhil Qureshi was one of the judges who was not appointed. There were many who were not appointed.
That's right.
They were all appointed afterwards.
But for 18 months, we did not have a single appointment to the Supreme Court.
Yes. So,
what does that suggest?
There have been periods when you haven't had elevation for 2 years. You haven't had elevation for longer. What is so extraordinary about this? We couldn't arrive at a consensus. It can happen in a human institution.
Do you believe, therefore, that there is a need to relook at the system as it exists? Why should judges, 5 brother-sister judges, sit together and decide on who will be who will be their fellow judges? Should the executive have a greater say, as the executive seems to want? The law minister seems to be running a campaign calling for a review of the collegium system.
Let's not go by the government of the day, the law minister of the day, or the chief justices at the collegium of the day. I'll tell you what my perspective is.
Sir.
My perspective is that under the Constitution of India, there are 3 organs of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. They are separated in their functions and powers. They are not separated in their purpose and objective. The objective of all 3 has to be the common objective set out in the Constitution in the preamble. I consider it perfectly legitimate that the executive has a vital interest in who is going to be a judge. Apart from the fact that they are the executive and one of the organs of government, they are also the largest litigant in any court. Now the problem is not that they have an interest in it. The problem is how to give effect to that interest. Earlier, it was only the Chief Justice of India who decided it along with the government. Sometimes the Prime Minister, the executive, the law minister. Then came the 2 judges case. It was widened. The Chief Justice of India's power was shared with the collegium. Power and responsibility. It was also, you brought in more fresh views on the same elevation. Then came the parliamentary law NJA, National Judicial NJC, that provided a wide representation to all kinds of opinions, including to social workers, eminent people. The Supreme Court did not agree with it, and they struck down that law. They also struck down the constitutional amendment on the ground that the independence of the judiciary expressed through the appointment of judges is a part of the basic structure. So there was no say to the executive formally. And that is as it is at the moment.
Do you support that? Do you believe that the executive should have no say in the appointment?
No, I don't support it. I started by saying that they have a vital interest in the...
Should they have a veto power?
No. They shouldn't have a veto power. The primacy of opinion must be that of the judiciary. The reason is, we know what is the caliber, the merit, and the suitability of the judges who are to be elevated. We have seen them right from the days they were lawyers. We have heard appeals against their judgments. We know how they think. We are best positioned to see which judge is meritorious. But those judges of the superior court, we are only talking of superior courts, because in the 70% of the judiciary, the public service commissions appoint them, which includes the government.
Yes.
We are only talking of High Court and Supreme Court. These courts, these judges have to take an oath of office. That oath of office says that I shall uphold the sovereignty and integrity of India, that I shall uphold the Constitution and the laws, and other things.
Yes.
It is important that a judge can do that as a judge. And on these aspects, it is often the executive's opinion which is vital. For instance, when the Intelligence Bureau reports to us, things like what are the activities of this judge. Now, you imagine a situation, a gross case, where one of the candidates is of the opinion that India should not be a sovereign entity like it is. There should be a separate state somewhere. Separate means outside India. The executive is in the best position to tell the court that this is not a suitable candidate, the collegium. So the executive's opinion is important. With or without the NJC, I have full respect for the judgment of the Supreme Court. I am saying that consultation with the executive can be made by the Chief Justice of India and the collegium. Their views taken, but I believe the primacy must remain with the Chief Justice or the collegium.
Okay, I think you've been pretty clear, categorical in that sense now about that. Consultation, but the final say must remain with the collegium is what you're telling me.
And consultation, I do not mean concurrence.
Okay, point taken. So we have very limited time left, but I'm going to ask you some more. Let's lighten the mood. The most difficult case in your career?
It's a case I didn't decide, but I'll tell you some. I mean, there was a laborer who was charged with rape and murder of a young girl.
Yes.
And and that chap had been convicted. When the appeal was pending, the investigating officer committed suicide, saying that I have been forced to implicate this chap. And he managed it successfully. The High Court agreed that his suicide note is true. And we were hearing an appeal. Obviously, he ought to have gone scot-free. This is Lalit, the expert in criminal law. But I took the view that we should not acquit him till we prosecute these prosecution witnesses who had lied through their teeth. And there was a difference of opinion between my colleague and me. He said, no, we'll just let him go. I said, no, we must prosecute him. Fortunately, unfortunately, the bench changed. And I couldn't decide that case, but I have never been so foxed in a case as in this one. Because the suicide note was not part of the trial record.
It's interesting you're saying that, because your one judgment did create a lot of controversy, where you, not judgment, but an observation you made in court, where you suggested to a rape victim that she marry.
I didn't.
This is what was reported.
I'll tell you what happened.
That she marry her alleged rapist.
Frankly, I want to tell you what happened because I haven't got a chance to tell anyone what happened.
Please do.
The boy and the girl had a love affair. They were related to each other distantly. They had a love affair, and parents on both sides objected because they were spending a lot of time together. So they told them, you get married. You can't carry on like this. They had an affair for 7, 8 years. And they signed an agreement that we'll marry. Now that chap came in appeal. He applied for bail. And that woman then said that I'll prosecute you for rape because we've been having sex and you haven't married me. So that his bail was rejected. He came by way of a bail application before the Supreme Court. I told him that what is this matter you've been living together and there is this agreement on record which you have signed to solve this family dispute.
Right.
And are you going to get married or not? That is what I asked.
Okay.
Just a minute. And then I rejected his bail application because they said, no, we have not married, I haven't followed this agreement. I rejected his bail application, and these intelligent people in society wrote to me saying that you must review your orders. Means what? Grant him bail. Absurd things.
Okay, this is the danger of obiter dicta.
Yeah.
Making headlines. But my final question is, there was a nice picture of you on a Harley Davidson. We haven't seen too many CJIs on a Harley Davidson. You're a Mobike fan. We didn't know it till then. Any regrets about posing there in...
I wasn't posing. Somebody got that Harley Davidson. I sat on it. And there was somebody who had nothing to do with anything who took a picture and sent it to her lawyer husband.
Right.
And that is how it went around. I didn't ride it. I only sat on it, though I would have liked to ride it, I will tell you that. It was COVID times, there are a lot of, you know the rest. But frankly, I became very popular with the younger crowd.
You did. and you've also become very popular among judges because during COVID times, you brought in online technology to encourage more and more people to appear before court. It's now hybrid, and I think it's made a huge difference to the courts, and that will be one of your many abiding legacies, Justice Bobde. But thank you so much for joining us and giving us your perspective. Appreciate Justice Bobde there taking those questions. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you raise a warm applause for Justice Bobde, may I please call upon Mr. Virendra Kumar Kasliwal to come up on stage. He's the Chief Financial Controller. Sir, just 2 minutes, sir. To come up on stage and present a small token of our appreciation to Justice Bobde.
It's not a Harley Davidson, don't worry. You have one. Wow. Thank you so much, sir. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
That's not it.
So Rajdeep continues with our next session. As he said, we have 2 former Chief Justices and the current there. So the next session, over to you, Rajdeep.
Our second Chief Justice is another very distinguished occupant of the post who served as Chief Justice for just 74 days last year, but whose tenure is marked by truly some remarkable achievements. Most notably, the manner in which more than 16,000 cases were listed and almost 4,000 of them were cleared within the first 12 days of his tenure as CJI. And constitution benches were set up to dispose of key pending cases of constitutional importance. Please welcome Justice U.U. Lalit. Firstly, Justice Lalit, the manner in which you attempted to clear that judicial pile up in the apex court, was that a mission that you set yourself when you became Chief Justice? You knew you were Chief Justice for less than 3 months, but quite remarkably from day one, you really cracked the whip.
It was not a mission, but it was something like a concerted action on part of everyone who was on the bench. The day I took over, same day we had a full court meeting, and I placed before all the judges the statistics that there are about, say, 55 death sentence matters which are pending. And under the regime that the Supreme Court has accepted, a death sentence matter has to come before a bench of 3 judges, which means that one must have sufficient number of 3-judge bench combinations. If you have just 1 or 2 combinations, the judges get sort of, it starts weighing on their conscience that how many death sentence matter am I supposed to hear? So I said we must have at least 6 3-judge combinations so that we can divide the work amongst the benches. We were 30 judges. So I also told all my colleague judges that divide 30 number by 5 and we can possibly have 6 constitution benches. All of us will be part of the benches. So what I did was 6 3-judge combinations, which means 18, 6 2-judge combinations, which means 12. Every time, just add A on one side and B on the other, and you have a constitution bench. So this is how we started. Then the second part which I told the judges was that there were referred matters to 3 judges combination which were pending consideration. What happens is, on a question of law, if a matter is referred to a bench of 3 judges, there is a domino effect that there are a number of other matters which are waiting for the decision in that matter. So therefore, if you decide one matter, logically you are actually deciding host of the other matters. So therefore, it is in this situation that we devised a way, and that's how we started. And I must thank every colleague of mine that everyone rose to the occasion and we started disposing of matters.
But it's had a huge effect. I can tell you that a lot of lawyers have truly appreciated it. Those who cover the courts have appreciated what you did. But, I'll give you an example. Number of cases that were pending for a long time. The Siddiq Kapan case. A journalist is arrested under UAPA in 2020 October. The bench headed by you grants him bail in August 2022. And this comes at a time when a number of lower courts in this country are reversing the basic principle of law, bail not jail. They're instead saying, not granting bail. You can go to Shah Rukh Khan's son's case in a lower court or a number of other less high profile cases. Is that a worry for you? That, as someone who's an expert on criminal law, that a number of judges, especially in the lower courts, are not granting bail in cases where bail should have been given as in the normal courts?
See, it depends upon the perspective of an individual. Some of the trial court judges, perhaps, they think that the case is not made out for grant of bail. Add to it one more dimension. Many of the statutory provisions make it difficult to grant bail. So therefore, there is an embargo under the statutory provision. Say, for instance, NDPS law, the bail cannot be granted so easily. So therefore, a satisfaction first has to be entertained, has to be recorded by the judge that very well, in my view, the man is not guilty of the offense with which he is charged. And then only the process of bail consideration then happens. So most of these occasions where the trial court or the judges in the first court do not grant bail may be because, number one, that the matter is still sort of, pending investigation. So therefore, on most of the occasions, the investigating machinery comes up before the court and says that we are still in the process of investigating. So therefore, the court has to make up mind whether on the basis of material case is made out or not, or should I wait for some more material? It may be that way.
But do you think there needs to be a review of the process, that the Supreme Court needs to send out, perhaps the Chief Justice Office needs to send out perhaps a clearer message? Look at the way PMLA, sir, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, has now, and it's based now on a Supreme Court judgment, virtually giving police powers of a kind to the Enforcement Directorate that are draconian. Because it essentially means you are guilty and you will have to prove innocence. Enforcement Directorate can come into my house under PMLA, arrest me, and I will struggle to get bail for months on end, even if I may be innocent.
You are right, it may happen in an individual case, but if you see the judgment of the Supreme Court, which was rendered by a bench of 3 judges, of course the review is pending on that issue. But this very point was urged before the court, and the court did not consider it appropriate to rule on that, to say, and actually said that PMLA definitely hinges on one part, which is that the bail provisions, as I mentioned in the earlier just about 5 minutes back, some of these statutory provisions make it difficult to grant bail, and PMLA is one of them.
Should they be reviewed?
Then the validity of the legislation has to be challenged, number one. Number two, it is a parliamentary legislation. So therefore, it is our legislators who have come out with this particular law. Unless and until that legislation is validly challenged before the court is bound to proceed on the basis of that.
Justice Lalit, let me come to where, in a way, the thread that I began with Justice Bobde. How independent are our courts? Has the apex court in this country turned into what scholars like Gautam Bhatia have suggested, an executive court? Mindful of being in line with whatever the political executive really wants. Basically, for all the obiter dicta that often we hear from judges, all the fire and brimstone against the government, when it comes to the judgments, they fall in line with what the political executive wants. This is what legal scholars suggest is the making of an executive court.
I do not subscribe to that view at all. According to me, all the courts are quite independent, and you will actually see it in the process. Say, for instance, two matters which came before me. One was Siddiq Kappan, the other was Tista Setalwad. Both of them were released on bail. Another matter which came before me, Vinod Dua, he was also granted solace relief in the matter. Third one, again somebody from Varavara Rao, again we granted him relief. It's not as if, please, and what happens is we jump in immediately to make a generalized statement. It is not so. The courts are completely independent, and this kind of theory which Justice Bobde actually referred to, that it is very, very difficult for the judges and very easy for somebody from outside to criticize that, correct?
You know, as media persons, we can...
Of course, yes, you are entitled to.
It's our job to, in a way, question. You say criticize, but the sealed envelope, you know, important cases, the judges say, please give it to us in a sealed envelope. We don't know what's in the sealed envelope. That results in a lack of transparency.
I'll tell you, this all started in that Vineet Narayan case,
That's
which
right.
was Jain Diary case, correct? At that juncture, the Supreme Court was interfering or was considering the matter, and at that juncture, the investigation was still on. It was not clear whether the material which the investigator had collected, was it worthy, was it sufficient? But at the same time, the court just wanted to consider that the issue was considered or looked into by the investigators. So therefore, sealed envelope was entertained. The court did not pass any order. All that it said is that if, according to you, Mr. Investigator, there is a case made out, proceed further. That's it.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned just now, a little while ago, the Tista Setalwad case. Because I recall, sir, and let me be honest today, when you became Chief Justice, there was media comment again that Justice Lalit, I think when you became a judge actually, that you had been Amit Shah's counsel in the Sohrabuddin case, and that will Justice Lalit therefore be truly independent? You showed through your judgments that you are independent, and kudos to you for that. But there was this sense that did that ever weigh on your mind, that the media commentary that plays out, that here is the Home Minister's former counsel in the Sohrabuddin case, now the Chief Justice. Were you under extra pressure at any stage?
Not at all. See, as a lawyer, I represented something like 18 chief ministers in various matters, including S.M. Krishna, who was from Congress, Sukhram, who was from Congress, some of the 3 chief ministers from Maharashtra who were from Congress, Yediyurappa, who was BJP, then Jayalalitha, who was again in the opposition. So I have represented a number of them. I have not met any one of them. So therefore, it was only pure and simple professional assignment. To me, it was like appearing in any matter, whether it was ABC, XYZ, or that politician. Makes no difference.
That's wonderful to hear, sir, because I think it's important to recognize perhaps that sometimes the media criticism, as you said, is based around speculation. But let's come for a moment to judicial pressure. During your term, the one case where you found yourself in a bit of a spot, you listed a case on a Saturday on an appeal filed by the Maharashtra government challenging the acquittal of a DU professor, G.N. Sai Baba, accused of Maoist links. Many saw this as unusual, especially as Justice Chandrachud on the Friday had orally expressed a view against any urgent listing. Next morning, listing takes place, a bench sits, and the acquittal is suspended. And many believe that this was done under pressure.
I've already responded to this line of question in one of the interviews, and that was by, perhaps I think, Srinivasan Jain.
That's right, after
Correct?
you
Yes,
demitted
that's
office.
right. I'll tell you, in case now that you have repeated the question, then I must answer it completely. See, it was a Friday, and that was the last working day for Justice Hemant Gupta. So he was demitting office, and on the last day, the custom is that the retiring judge sits in with the Chief Justice. So he was sitting with me. And the last day, the number of matters which are listed before such a bench are very, very less. So we rose for the day around 1 o'clock. The matter was mentioned in court number 2 because the Chief's court was not sitting. So it was mentioned before the bench presided over by Justice Chandrachud. Justice Chandrachud, naturally, because when you are mentioning, the papers are not before you. So the matter was mentioned by the learned Solicitor General, and his first reaction was that in case the bail is the issue, then why should we list it tomorrow? Correct. But finally, the Solicitor General perhaps was able to convince him. So therefore, the order which was passed had 3 paragraphs. Number 1, saying that the apprehension is expressed by Mr. Solicitor General that in case the matter is not heard immediately, the person may be released immediately.
Yes.
Number 2, we therefore allow him to make a mention before so that to get the matter listed next day. Now, it was possible for the court to list the matter next week because the normal mentioning was there. But the court was definitely convinced that if we list the matter sometime next week, that is Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, perhaps the urgency which has been canvassed will completely get nullified. And therefore, the chance had to be given that in case the matter can be listed on Saturday. Now, the other thing is, such kind of urgent listings, the court number 2 is not entitled to do. Going by the master of roster, it is only the chief who can do it. So therefore, the order was actually put in a very, very, what we say is the format of deference, that we give liberty so-and-so, so-and-so to make a mention. But the intent of the order is that definitely you consider the matter. So therefore, at about say 4 o'clock when the matter was brought before me, the order, the paper book again was not before me. Secondly, the man who brings before me the order was not aware as to what oral observations were made by the court while the mentioning was on. So I was to go to the hall where the final felicitation of Justice Gupta was to be undertaken. So as we enter, the first person that I wish to contact is Justice Chandrachud himself. I approach him and say that now that you have actually come out with this order, will you be part of the special bench to be constituted tomorrow? He had certain reservations because he had given some kind of commitments to somebody. So therefore he said it won't be possible. The major part of the day I have given some commitments. So therefore I turned to the next, because it was right there, all the judges were there. So 3 judges, Justice Rastogi, Justice Gawai, and Justice Suryakant, I approached them. They again say that we have some other commitments. The 4th judge that I approach is Justice Ravindra Bhatt. He said, sir, I have actually called the steno to complete a judgment, so therefore I have some commitment on that front. But in case you don't get anybody, I'm willing. So as a default option. So the next person that I contact is Justice Bela Trivedi. She says yes. Then the man next who I bump into is Justice M.R. Shah. I again put the same question to him. He said yes. So this is how the bench got constituted.
Okay, I'm glad
now,
you gave...
No, just listen to that. None of those persons, neither Imar Shah, nor Bela Trivedi, nor me, are aware of the intricacies of the matter. The intricacies of the matter are actually before the bench which had heard the mentioning. None of us were even aware of that. We simply listed the matter next day. Why? In deference to what the order had said.
Okay, it's interesting that you've given that backstory to clear the air. Again, it's part, as I said, therefore, the media will have their own commentary, which carries on, and I will come back to the media pressures on a judge. But very quickly, sir, collegium system. Do you approve of what the law minister has been saying publicly, calling for a review of the system? Do you believe that the executive deserves a greater say, or some would even say a return to the NJSC, the National Judicial Appointments Committee? Do we need a return to that?
See, as judges, we take oath that we will abide by the Constitution as by law established. Wasn't it the judgment of the 5 judges which said that NJSC is not the correct law? So are we supposed to observe and go by the Constitution as by law established, or have a different modality? We had to observe purely by the collegium system. See, in a polity, if you have another system, if you have another regime in contemplation, let that regime be put in place in a manner known to law. The moment it is put in place, the judges will be bound to observe that. As of now, if you ask me my personal view, then according to me, the collegium system is the ideal system.
Is the ideal system?
Absolutely.
You don't believe it leads to aberrations, it leads to sort of lack of, there is an opacity to it, there is a sense that the judiciary becomes a bit of a cabal that decides on its own who will be the fellow judges?
See, I'll tell you. Now, this collegium, which was headed by Justice Ramana, where I was judge number 2 in the court, we had Justice Khanvilkar as number 3, and 3 of us, we made recommendations which were accepted by the government, and about 255 persons were appointed. At the same time, we did not accept the matters which were coming through the collegium of the High Court. And about 70 or 80 names we rejected. 40 odd names are still under consideration by the government. So therefore, look at the kind of, the statistics themselves show that we at the apex level, we don't accept everything which comes through the collegium of the High Court. Now, how is the matter actually coming through the collegium? See, you require judges at every level. The whole system is geared to have the best possible talent. Now, under the Constitution, the lower judiciary or the district judiciary is completely under the control of the High Court. Appointments, posting, promotion, transfers, everything is done by the High Court. The executive has no say. It is through these courts that 1/3 of the strength of the High Court is actually forming. So you have those persons whose entire profile is seen by the High Court at every juncture, not just 1 or 2 persons, but repeatedly as an institution. Similarly, the advocates who practice before the High Court, the judges who form the body, they see their performance every day. So who are actually supposed to be better positioned to see the merit or the talent? Somebody sitting as an executive here, or somebody who is actually seeing the grassroots level performance, say in Kochi or in Manipur or in Andhra or in, say, Ahmedabad? Now, it is the High Court alone.
So let me quote again Dushyant Dave, a senior Supreme Court advocate. We have a large number of judges who are highly questionable. They either lack the expertise or the knowledge, and most of all the commitment. I know of judges who haven't delivered a single good judgment.
I don't know about Mr. Dushyant Dave's sort of, this particular statement and why he made that statement. But it is for him to justify that. I can't actually have a counter justification, correct? According to me, see, that is exactly why. When a man is made judge of the High Court, you see the performance. When we select a man, Justice Bobde, anybody who has been part of the collegium, we see the judgments, we see the kind of performance which he has over a period of time has actually come out with. It is after that 5 judges of the Supreme Court then consider whether a man is worthy or not. At the same time, they are also guided by the advice given by what we call the consultee judges. So in the process, there are not just 5 who are collegium judges, but there are other consultee judges as well. At the same time, the version coming from the executive, as Justice Bobde said, that perhaps it may have something to say about the profile of the man. It may be that there may be some kind of complaint against him. There may be something, some dark corner somewhere in the persona, which perhaps as judge in the collegium we are not aware of. So therefore, that part of the consultation through IB reports, through everything, is also placed before the court. It is after that that the process, that the decision is taken.
Okay, because there are interesting cases like that of Justice of Senior Advocate Saurabh Kirpal, which has been held up, and its result is his sexual reason for it. All of this is speculated.
See, again, now just consider this. The collegium did not falter on Saurabh Kirpal's case. Collegium did make a recommendation. Collegium did reiterate. So how do we say collegium system is bad? It is the fault lies somewhere else, if at all.
Okay. I want to ask you this in conclusion. You quite wonderfully, after you've retired, have gracefully gone to teach O.P. Jindal University, Mumbai, IIT. You're teaching constitutional law. Honest answer. Should former CJIs or judges after retirement take any government sinecure without a cooling off period? We've just had a Supreme Court fellow colleague of yours becoming a governor of a state. We've had a Supreme Court Chief Justice becoming a nominated member of the Rajya Sabha. Do you believe this is a healthy practice?
It all depends upon the individual. See, some individuals may find nothing objectionable. Person like me would rather say that very well, let me try something else in another quarter. Correct? I have been a lawyer, I have been a judge. Let me be a professor now. Yes.
I think those cheers really say it all. That there is a problem if you don't have a cooling off period. So very quickly, your most difficult case.
Not in terms of any quality or any kind of problem which it posed, but sheer bulk of the matter, that was 2G. The kind of paperwork which ran into lakhs and lakhs of pages, to be controlling that, to be sort of in the midst of everything, where there were, at least by the time we finished, more than 150 witnesses were examined, so much of documentation. So sheer bulk, that was the only thing.
What's the most satisfying thing about being a judge? You were a very successful lawyer. What was most satisfying of being a judge? You must have taken a huge cut in salary to become a judge.
All that is something completely a personal decision, correct? Yes. See, I always felt that I have been part of this institution. Before I took that plunge, I had put in about 32 years in the practice as a lawyer. I have earned some name, some fame, some money, some stature. It is only through that profession, which is the law profession. So there is some way to give back to the society, and that is where I accepted judgeship. Another feature or another form in which I wish to give it back to the society is teach the law students. That's it.
Three words to describe the state of the Supreme Court today.
Fantastic court, yet tremendous area for improvement.
Okay, I think you've left enough. You've given us a teaser perhaps for another interview where we'll discuss perhaps those areas of improvement. But Justice Lalit, it's been a pleasure having you here today.
The pleasure has been mine.
And speaking so openly and freely, I think moment people demit office, some of that burden goes away and you can speak even more freely. And I'm sure that's as true of you as many others.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Justice UU Lalit.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Justice UU Lalit as I call upon Nitin Seth, Vice Chairman Tops, to come up on stage and present a very small token of our appreciation to Justice Lalit. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. Raise a warm applause for Justice UU Lalit. Ladies and gentlemen, just want to give you a heads up. The photo exhibit that I was telling you about right outside at the Shah Jahan Hall, where India Today's AI team has completely reimagined some of our iconic covers, is only going to be there for just about an hour or two more. So do go out, step out, take a look, because we're going to clear the hall for the Prime Minister's security. He is our keynote speaker this evening. The area will need to be sanitized, so do go ahead and if you haven't till now, and I recommend it highly, you must go and do it. Also want to reiterate that whatever you've seen yesterday, today, where thought leaders from all walks of life coming in together, sharing their vision of the India moment, all of that, the highlights of it, will be re-encapsulated in our next edition of the India Today magazine. All right, we're ready to go into our next session for this afternoon. Do settle down. Those crowding the aisles, please just come in, settle down. All right, let's get into our next session this afternoon. Soul eclipse, why our children are self-harming, how to fix it, insights on the teenage depression epidemic in India. We've put together a short film on teenage depression. I'd like you to see it before we cut across to our session's moderator.
Teenage and depression, they just don't go together, right?
I was around 16 years old. Day after day, I would wake up feeling shattered.
I think one of my closest friends struggled with mental health. I think she was just 12 or 13.
It took me more than 6 months of suffering, 3 or 4 suicidal attempts. And many notices from university of absence to convince my parents that I need medical attention.
A lot of my friends have considered or have actually self-harmed.
In my circle of friends, I've encountered a lot of cases of depression and anxiety.
Do not really understand what depression is. They think that you have to be of a certain age to be depressed.
Bullying would be one of the biggest reasons for depression. Body shaming people, making fun of people for their sexuality.
There's this need to please on social media, being very conscious of what you're posting, wanting to edit every picture.
Be it in family or in school, people are unconsciously pressure boys to be a certain way. First would definitely be family issues. My parents, they didn't handle their divorce as well as they should have, and I feel like that's the case with a lot of people, and they involve their child too much, way more than they should.
I think bullying is a big one. A lot of people still feel like they can't confide in their parents.
There's a big divide between people of other sexualities and people who are considered to be conventional.
Everything is so competitive. Anything below 99.99% feels like a failure.
Body is a very big one. Skinny is a constant one. Then there's snatched, which is having a really small waist.
Domestic violence obviously has to be on that list, because once a child sees that, it traumatizes them for the rest of their lives.
It's not just sadness, but it's prolonged sadness.
Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, the one which I grew up in, there aren't enough examples how to be around such person and how to extend a helping hand to such a person.
One thing I've realized is the importance of therapy, but even before that, the importance of clear and honest conversations. When we are going through a tough phase mentally, we know what we need to do. We know how we can get out of it. It's just that we can't do it.
It was always a hush-hush topic. Even at home, it was always a hush-hush topic. It's a very tricky, murky battle to fight. But it starts with baby steps. And the first being acknowledging that it might just exist and it's not such a bad thing.
To an extent, social media should be age restricted. 8-year-olds shouldn't be exposed to the same things a 16-year-old would be allowed to be exposed to.
If someone is depressed, their loved one should just be with them. Whenever mom has panic attacks, I'm just always with her. So, and then I guess that calms her down. I guess it was the divorce between her and dad which triggered it.
In those moments when men do need help, it's not always given because most people feel like you shouldn't need it.
Yeah, in the scope of our school, there's a very set stereotype of who will be popular and which girls are pretty, and because of that, how well liked they are.
I think a lot of the times it's just seen as attention seeking. Awareness doesn't always mean understanding.
Depression is just so commonplace. It's an irony how it's not, there in everyday conversation as it should be.
Well, to take it from here, I'd like to invite our session's moderator, Shoma Chaudhary, Consulting Editor, India Today Group.
Good morning. Continuing a tradition that India Today started 2-3 years ago of spotlighting a very, very important issue in our society, which is teenage mental health. It's not talked about enough, and we're really hoping that these sessions will draw more and more attention to this. You saw this little film. It gives a sense of the echo chamber of how widespread this is. There were some statistics there, and I'll just share one more before I call the panelists on stage, which is that in India, and this is all underreporting, there are about 200 million people who suffer from active depression, and only about 30% are seeking help. And to show that this is really something that's ever escalating, in America, we've just, some statistics say that 60% of young girls in America, 3 out of 5 are so persistently sad that they have fallen out of normal activities. So that's really like canaries, telling us what's wrong with our society. And to discuss that, to draw attention, we have a really, poignant, powerful panel today. And I'd like to first call on stage Pranavi Khandekar. She's 22 years old. Pranavi, please give her a warm welcome. Pranavi is 22 years old. She's studying psychology at Ambedkar University. And Pranavi is somebody who suffered from depression from the time she was 9 to, she's still coping, healing. She's someone who's self-harmed, who's tried to commit suicide, has OD'd, and she's here to tell us, what really happened with her and what was her state of mind during those years. I'd next like to call on stage Abha Adams, who is a very, very respected, well-known educator in India. She has been the director of Shri Ram Step by Step and has worked with children for more than 30 years. She's written a book called Parenting in the Age of Anxiety. So please give a warm welcome to Abha. And now we have Nupur Dhingra, who's a psychotherapist and psychologist, works with her consultancy practice is called Family Tree, and she works a lot with young children and families, so has great insight into what's going on. And next I'd like to call Shudipto Patra, who is a parent, he's a professional in his own right, a media person, but again, who both his sons have suffered from acute depression. The elder son more so is someone again who's self-harmed, tried to commit suicide, and is now, in the process of transitioning to a new gender. And Shudipto's here to share with us, from a parent's perspective, how to deal with children who are wounded in any way. So thank you very much for joining us. Pranavi, I wanted to start with you, and thank you so much for trusting us with your story. You know, as I shared with the audience already that, you know, at age 9, you discovered that you're adopted, and that seemed to have triggered a spiral in you, and then it played out over many years. Can you share with us your state of mind during that time? You know, what does depression really feel like?
Okay, so I felt tired and scared at the same time. It was feeling so much and nothing at all at once. Sometimes I was just feeling numb. I would have sleepless nights. I'd just toss and turn around the bed, not being able to sleep. But there were also times I would sleep 2, 3, like the entire day for like a couple of weeks. But like, if it was basically to escape the reality. That's what I feel, and it felt as if I'm walking on a thin rope, trying to balance myself while carrying heavy rocks. And I was scared. What if I fall? What if I crash? I felt as if I had millions of tangled wires inside my head. It was so messy and it was so disturbing. I wanted to untangle them, like each one of them, but then there were just too many, so I just gave up even before I could start. It was frustrating. I felt choked, I felt suffocated, and the pain was too much inside.
So, Pranavi, you know, you shared with me earlier that your mother was quite a supportive person, and yet you were self-harming, and this is something that bewilders a lot of people. That, you know, can you share with us, like, what was the reason that you would, like, cut yourself? You're already in so much pain. Why were you then further cutting yourself?
Okay, so I was in so much pain within, and I just couldn't take it anymore. Sometimes my body would feel numb. I didn't know what to do. Sometimes I needed to feel the pain, so I would like keep checking, okay, am I still working? Is my body still working? Am I okay? What's happening? I was scared. And sometimes it would be because I was just scared, and I felt that was the only time I was seen, not by just others, but by my own self. It felt more real, you know, like, agar kisi ko chot lagti hai, so they're like, oh, isko lag gayi hai, isko, like, he's in pain, like, they can see, they acknowledge it. So when I would self-harm, I could acknowledge my inner pain as well. Like, it's that much that it's led to all of this. So, I mean, that was how it.
So it was literally like giving vocabulary to what was inside.
Exactly,
to make it visible. You know, I'm going to come back to you to talk to us about what helped you heal, but I just wanted to share with the audience that in addition to finding out about her adoption, there were other triggers for Pranavi, which was that she was fat-shamed. You said you were about 90 kilos,
yeah.
And she was fat-shamed. People remarked about her color, her peers. She shifted schools, you know, teachers, parents. There was a lot of stuff going on for her, and I want you to help us untangle that. But Abha, here's where I want to come to you. You know, you've been working for 30 years and more possibly with students and children. What is going wrong, Abha? And you know, there's always been generation gap stuff that we've heard about, parent-child conflicts. But in the last 10 years, what has escalated so much that we're seeing this phenomenon, you know, this epidemic of teenage depression?
I think it's been there for the last 20 years and we didn't realize the early starts. But I believe the last 10 years has really shown the impact of the kind of accelerated change that our society is going through. Dr. Shailja Sen, when I spoke to her, said something very interesting, and she said, children are the canaries of our times. If children are broken, then society is broken. And looking at it from that perspective, I think we've fractured ourselves in many ways. We've given in to rampant consumerism. We have the commercialization of practically every aspect of our lives, whether it's giving birth to babies or preschool, whatever it is. The digitalization and that takeover has particularly, when you add that to the mix, added to this sense of, I'm not perfect. There is a photoshopped mirage of perfection that our parents and our young are looking at, which gives them that this is how you need to be. You need to have a glistening skin, you need to be tall, you need to be skinny, you need to have straight hair, you need to be fair. And what's more, you need to have a happy, happy life. Happy holidays. But life's not like that. Life isn't all happiness. And as parents, if we, and I'm afraid that's what we have done, become aspirational for that perfect, the myth of happy families and perfection, that my children are going to succeed, and you define that success mantra. You don't look at your child and see what is the child's own particular yearning, passion, unique ability or trait. And it's happening with schools as well. But you define the success mantra, which is great marks. You want to intervene?
No, I just wanted to pull the others in because... So,
okay, absolutely, absolutely.
So, Nupur, before I come to Sudipto, you're seeing the really injured end of the spectrum of hurting children. So give us some insight that when you're dealing with parents and with children who've actually finally come to you for help, dive deeper also from what Abha is saying, which is a societal level, what's going on. You know?
One of the first things that we get to see in our practice is how young people really struggle with being taken seriously. To have their distress really acknowledged and taken seriously by school, family, and a bit like the video that you showed just now, where the words that the young people are saying are about their distress, but then you listen to the music, and the music is all very happy, happy.
Yeah, I wanted that disjunction to show.
And that is the disjunct about the facade that has to be on the outside and the internal experience. Whether it's family or schools or institutions, we don't really know what to do with distress. And there is a wish, a fantasy that we can medicalize it and that a pill will help us will help to make us feel better. That's not how it works.
So what works? If you were to give us just one lever that everyone should have, what would that be?
I'm going to actually connect to what Pranavi just said, which was to acknowledge that it's there. I'd say over 50% of the work we do day in and day out in our consulting rooms is listen. We listen to what the young people are saying. We zip our mouths, our opinions, which we have. We're not neutral parties. We come from our own history and prejudices even. And we were adolescents once, etc. But we listen.
So I'm going to come back to both you and Abha. You know, you've mentioned listening, and Abha also has an idea of the kind of parenting that over all these years she feels that one really needs to do. I'm going to come back to both of you. Sudipto, I wanted to pull you in here that, you've been a parent that's now seen both your children go through a journey of suffering. What has your experience been? Did you start from a position of blindness and bewilderment, and through this arc, where have you reached, which makes you a better support system for your children?
Okay, before I answer that, may I pull the audience in? How many people have, within their first line of family, experienced mental health issues? Can I show of hands? So that's sort of less than 30%. We have an audience which still needs to get sensitized, maybe. Mental health doesn't come knocking at your door. It will not say that I'm here. How to be sensitive and be aware is an ongoing process. That's where I'm here primarily to share with you some of the things that, with the benefit of hindsight, we can say that might be done better. One of the first things that I would like to say is to allow children to remain children. How do we do that? It's such a simple thing to say, but it's a complex thing to live. Do you give them aspirations? Well, you do, but don't pin the future on them. Now that's complicating matters. Do you say that, tomorrow you will have a career and go and score? We saw the video, some 99%, etc. people are saying. Maybe it's not a good idea. If your child is willing to take that, go ahead and do it. But if your child is not willing, so listen. Also listen to what the child is not saying. I think that's something that we have learned the hard way. You have to be able to listen to what the child is not saying as well. Very often, the child is not saying what the issue is. And that becomes more important than what the child is saying, because the child might be under pressure from you, from teachers, from peer group, from society, from
Shudipta, here I just wanted to, again, for the audience to really understand this, maybe you could share that incident when Ambuj, who's now transitioning into Anjalika, but when he had ADHD, you didn't really understand, and he was sent off to military school. And what happened over there as a parent, I think that will really help the audience understand.
So, one of the things that, it's an incident, let me try and narrate it as briefly as possible. It's not as if ADHD or ADHD children do not go to the military. So those are not linked. However, they cannot be trained into the military till they are ready to know what military demands. So that's where we made the mistake. The call was still ours. Went to a military school at an age when the call was still for the parent to take, not the child to take. So we take responsibility, we don't blame ourselves. Now that's the other important thing that the parents have to keep in mind. Take responsibility, take charge, do what needs to be done, but don't blame yourself, because blaming yourself is no good. It's useless. So he went there, and they have to do all kinds of things. They have to play hockey, and he would say that, I can't connect the ball. He would narrate the story and come back during vacations and say that, if I swing the stick, either I pull some mud out of the ground or I am not able to connect to the ball. Obviously, later we figured out he had a condition called sensory integration difficulty. Most of you might have seen Tare Zameen Par, where a child learns to pick up how the ball is coming, how to connect, etc. Now, some children will not learn it.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to jump in only because, we're going to run out of time, and I really want to come back to everyone.
Please go ahead.
So, if I may just say it in a synopsis that, so basically Ambuj then was not suited for military school because it was so disciplinary. And I chatted with Ambuj earlier where he said it was horrible because if he wasn't able to do something, his entire batch was punished for it,
That's right.
So in addition, he had all that burden put on him, and he really cracked at that point. That was the first time he really harmed himself.
So fragile shoulders should not be burdened with more weight till they are ready to take more weight.
Yeah. So I'm sorry I'm rushing you all. It's just that, these are big issues and we're sort of rushing this. But Pranavi, help us understand that, you went through this entire process, and today you're sitting here facing an entire audience. For someone who couldn't face yourself, what was it that helped you heal?
I think therapy and medication combined helped me be the person I am today, helped me learn, helped me grow, helped me understand myself. Therapy taught me how to create space in my body to deal with and handle difficult feelings and emotions. It taught me how to create a tap in that overflowing patila of my anxiety. It taught me how to deal with my anxiety. So I was told about an anxiety meter. So 1 was the lowest, 10 was a crash. So I was able to recognize, I was slowly becoming aware of where I was. And if I would ask for help immediately when I would see myself there if I was at 3. So I think that helped me. And yeah, I have written something.
Yeah, you want to share that?
Yes.
Very quickly. And also, you were saying that very often now you dialogue with it's not that there's no more anxiety in you, but you've learned a way of talking to yourself.
Yes, exactly.
You want to share that?
Yeah, I would love to, yeah. So each time I get anxious or, I feel angry or throw a tantrum with my mom, for example, and I feel horrible about it. So I talk to myself. I talk to the inner child in myself. I tell it that I know that you're scared. I know that you're fearful. But it's okay. I'm here too now. I'm 22 years old. I can take charge. I don't want to abandon you. No, I don't want to. We can do collaborative work. I know you care for me, and I respect and value you. You are very valid. So I would talk to it, and I would really feel better, and I was able to activate my adult self.
Right.
Yeah.
Pranavi, I'm going to come back to you to read that because, I haven't finished just plumbing all of them. Abhay, may I come back to you that, when we were chatting earlier, you zeroed in on two very important things that all society needs to do, which is to communicate and connect better, Those are big words, but is there any ingredients to that we can all take away? Differing temperaments, but is there some practice we can follow?
Communication and connection at both the level at the home and the school. And I've seen that there's a breakdown in both. At the basis of communication is the fundamental need to accept. All of us want to be accepted for who we are and valued for what we bring, and to be respected. If, as a parent, I do not connect with my child with that acceptance of I see you, I hear you, I respect you, and I accept you for who you are, then that connection doesn't happen, and then communication gets worse. I owe this understanding to Gloria, who is here with us this afternoon, and who clarified that as adults, as parents and educators, when we feel insecure and inadequate, we go to our go-to place, which is controlling behavior. We want to control the child in the class, we want to control the child at home. And of course, that's a collision course. So, creating safe spaces at home, early on, very early on, and at school, which is sorely lacking, the space for conversation is shrinking, leave alone a safe space, where the child knows that she has love, she has security, she has understanding, she will not be judged, she will not be belittled, and she will be accepted, where she can speak her mind to the parent and to the teacher. And that's critical. Now, it's hard because as a society, we are not used to speaking about these things. And so I think that's where training needs to begin.
Right. So again, Nupur, I'm so sorry, I'm feeling terribly this thing because we have such short time. Help us understand, you spoke about, again, this compliance, and you've spoken about listening even as a therapist, but there's a big parent community here that when you're dealing with these injured children, is there any pattern that you're seeing, which is creating that breakdown, and which you feel, again, that there can be some playbook that parents can take away?
So there's three things I want to say. One is in response to Pranavi's thing about anxiety still coming up. All of us on this stage right now are anxious about different things. Anxiety is something that everybody in this room experiences. Each of your smartphones is used as anesthesia against our anxiety when it rises. So anxiety is not something that's going to go away. It's a physiological experience. So let's not make it into something that is wrong. It's about levels of anxiety, connected to which the whole point about it needing spaces of safety. See, learning can only take place when the nervous system is in a place of safety. If your child in the home or in a school or in any scenario is scared, the nervous system is overwhelmed, and fear does not become a conducive place for the nervous system to take in new information. So learning cannot take place in fear. All of you are in powerful positions in your own respective places of work. You would know what it's like to have been facing a senior who's not listening. You would know what it's like now to have a subordinate you are being now in the position where you're trying to make them listen.
No, but I just wanted to cut in here because there's one important thing. So you've made this point about the anxiety that a lot of parents that I've spoken to and that even young children are confused about what's that line where you just tell someone to buck up and carry on, or when you really take it seriously enough to give it attention or therapy. Parents often can't recognize that. Is there anything that you can give?
Yes. And it's actually a specialist thing to be able to recognize when anxiety is over threshold and where you cannot tell them to just get on with it. But as a rule of thumb, I'd say if you're talking to teenagers or young people, avoid the word should, because then you've lost your audience. And the second one is do not tell them to get on with it, because that's very dismissive, and then you've lost your audience again.
But is there anything, how do they know when you have to go to a therapist? Like, this is happening at home. How do you know that you need to go to a therapist?
So our bottom line is take all distress seriously. After that, we can then talk about how much, when, where, and how.
Okay.
But you have to take distress seriously, because only then are they going to take you seriously.
Right. You were sharing with me earlier, there are physiological symptoms, you know, that when being sad to just not being functional is a good example of when you need to go to a doctor, you know. But Shadipta, I'm just going to, sorry, I'm going to have to rush you on this, that as a parent, when your child was cutting, you know, ODing, you had a certain response to it, which you said has helped you get through it. Would you share that in a line?
So what we did was we tried to tackle the job at hand, which was to take care of the child. We stood by the child. We didn't panic ourselves. That's one of the first things that usually we have heard other instances from other parents do. We were lucky enough not to do it. But what we fell short of is continue to show affection during that period of distress. So we needed to solve the immediate crisis when on a holiday we had a situation at home where medical aid was needed and no doctor was available. So we did what was necessary, including an intramuscular injection, tetanus, and so on, with guidance from the doctor. But what we could have done was to show more affection that we understand. That's something that is always in short supply when children have mental health challenges. Yeah.
I'm so sorry, and I'm feeling very rude to not let all of you read what you had planned to read to the audience, but I'd just like to share with you that all of them have written books, and the books are available outside on Amazon at Bahri Sons. I'm going to have to leave it here. You know, I'm sorry Shadipta's not even able to speak about the gender dysmorphia, transitioning to a new gender, all very bewildering experiences for parents, but this is just the tip, like a torchlight. And thank you very, very much, all of you, for sharing your time and experiences with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And like Shoma pointed out, all their books are at the Roshanara Hall. You can have a chat with them if you wish to. Get your copies signed. They're right here, and they'll see you at the Roshanara Hall. But I request all of you to stay on stage for just about a minute as I call upon Mr. Ranuj Kohli from Hitachi to come up on stage and present a small token of our appreciation to our panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, please raise a warm applause. Yeah. Just from the side, yeah, you can just come in from the side. Once again, they've all written books, they're all outside at the Roshanara Hall. Pick up their book, get it signed. If you want to have a chat, feel free to do so. Thank you, panelists. Let's move on right now to our next session. Social Dilemma, a steroid window into teenage alienation and class divides in India. Just give us about 10 seconds to turn around our stage and we'll be back with our session. Again, I'd like to remind you on all the sessions that have taken place here since yesterday on our 20th edition of the India Today Conclave. The highlights of that will be encapsulated in our next edition of the India Today magazine. To take it from here for our next session, Social Dilemma, a steroid window into teenage alienation and class divides in India, I'd like to call upon my colleague and our deputy editor, India Today Television, Akshita Nandgopal.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We just had a very, very productive, insightful discussion on teenage dystopia. So our next session is also related to that. And something that gave us a window into teenage turbulence, into what teenagers face, was a recent series on Netflix called Class. Many of you have seen it. It's got a lot of people talking, not just because of the drama, but also because it touches upon some very, very real issues. And joining us here on the India Today Conclave, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce to you the cast of Class. Please give them a big round of applause. So they've been with us backstage for the last 1.5 hours. There's a reason I haven't introduced them by name, because I'm going to get each one of them for you. And if you've seen Class, you know that they all play extremely interesting, diverse characters. I'm going to get each one of them to introduce themselves to you in their Class character. Chintan, shall we begin with you?
All right. So I have to introduce myself in...
As Chintan, but in the character of Farooq.
All right. Have you guys seen Class, by the way? Yeah, so I played Farooq. So I'll just introduce myself. Schoolboys and schoolgirls. This is Chintan Raj. That's what I think Farooq would say.
Yeah,
Anyways, yeah. So it would be on the lines of, hey schoolboy, this is Chintan Raj, and I'm an actor. I have been, इस वहाँ के आसमान का तो पता नहीं, पर क्लास में ज़रूर दिख जाऊँगा आपको.
Sivayal?
राम राम भाई, सिवायल नाम है मेरा. Hi, thank you. क्रांतिकारी हूँ, भिखारी नहीं. Hi guys, Gurfateh Peezada, and I play the character of Neeru.
Good afternoon. My name is Moses Kaul, and in the show I play Sharan Gujral. If you've seen the show right till the very end, then you know you don't want to cross me. But in real life, I love you all. Thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm Naina Bhan. No one plays Koil Kalra like Koil Kalra except Naina Bhan. I'm an actor now. I was previously a filmmaker, and I'm also a newly accredited intimacy coordinator. Thank you.
First of all, I'm kind of shocked you guys don't know who I am. I'm Zan Shaw, and you guys are very, very lucky to come watch me speak today. Thank you.
So that's the team of Class for you right here at the India Today Conclave. Sivayal, do you think you did justice to Bali? What is Bali known for most? There's a certain move associated with Bali that he's very well known for.
Oh, dude. Do you want twerking?
Go for it.
Yeah, so it's like this.
Twerking is not working.
Yeah. And also Bali in Shaga, I think.
I can't unsee that. But congratulations to all of you for the success of Class. It's been, I'm sure, an amazing journey for all of you. Gurfateh, beginning with you, did you expect this kind of an amazing response to Class?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously we came on this project knowing that it's going to be something path-breaking and something that's very different because the directors that we had and the platform that Netflix gave us, it was incredible. And like I said, I was just saying outside, how often do you see 11 new people in such a big show and there's absolutely no name attached to it? You go in watching the show without wanting to watch an actor or a specific star. It's and then you watch it and then hopefully you resonate with someone and then you know their names. So I think that's the biggest achievement that we feel like class gave us. And yeah, I mean, we didn't think that we'd be here. So that's great and very happy to be here.
Moses, what do you think it is about the series that's made it such a big hit? Do you think it's all of the drama that's associated with it, or there is a tinge of realness also of the teenage drama that you've kind of encapsulated? What teenagers face perhaps now?
Well, I think it's more than a tinge. I think I'll give it that it's definitely, look, it's suspended reality. That's what cinema is, right? In a lot of ways, I think why it's done the way it's done is, of course, what Gurfateh said, that when you don't know the actors or you've not seen them on Viral Bhiyani, you've not seen them being papped, you don't know what their persona is, right? For a lot of people over here, you might think that Sivail is exactly like Balli. So when you watch them, there's of course, it's easier to suspend belief and buy into the world. That's number one. Second is, we're talking about extremely pressing and sensitive issues in the show, and it's been dealt with in a way that doesn't lecture you. It's not preaching. It's addressing it in a way that is common and it's colloquial in a lot of ways. So I think that's what it is, and I feel like a lot of it also has to do with the fact that not just the actors, but the crew, the direction team, everybody pulled their own weight, right? So I think it's all of that, and of course, just that little bit. The tinge actually is the luck, not what you said otherwise, yeah?
Go ahead, Chintan.
Yeah, so I would like to add to that because now he mentioned preaching and class. So we have class and the word preaching together. So when even I got the script for the first time, like I got it way after just because firstly, like we were all newcomers. So I think Mera script, I got it, okay, this is my part.
You're the youngest of the group also.
Yeah, wow, thank you for specifying that. I was actually writing my exams while I was shooting in the vanity. I was like, just 1 hour, guys, I just need to complete my engineering. So that's the priority, guys. So in this country, we have to study first and then you can do all of this. Like, you know it, right? You know it, I don't have to say anything. But when I read the script, it was because as now he specified the word preaching, so I have this, ये class कुछ सिखाने नहीं आया था, ये दिखाने आया था. And when I say दिखाने, and when you compare it with the cinema, so people say कि okay, cinema is a reflection, it acts like a mirror. पर हम यहाँ पर कोई आईना दिखाने नहीं आया था, हम यहाँ पर ये दिखाने आए थे कि आईना खुद मैला है. So एक चीज़ जो साफ रह सकती है वो नज़रिया है. So that is my 2 cents on it.
Very well put, very well put. Can we have a round of applause, please, for him? Zain, how did you get into the flesh of your character? How did you get into this whole teenage drama once again? You had to recap your teenage years, yes?
Of course. I mean, you asked me how I got into the skin of Veer, kind of. So I started auditioning in 2020. That's when the script first came to me. And Oshim, so I'd audition scenes where I'd have to play like the high school douchebag, and also where I'd have to I also had audition scenes with Sabha to show my softer side. And my director bought into my softer side, but he wasn't convinced I could be that aggro, mean person, I guess. So during workshops, there was a lot of, we worked a lot on the anger of the character, I think.
True.
On set, there was a lot of back and forth. Oshim would scream at me to like kind of get that reaction out of me. So yeah.
But how difficult was it for you in the sense that when you were a teenager versus now? I think the situation is very different because I feel it. When I saw Class, I was like, is this how teenagers are right now? Did you feel that?
I mean, social media is the biggest difference, I think, since when I was a teenager. And Class obviously tackles a lot of issues that social media kind of gives to you. So, I mean, I was so separated from social media before class actually happened. I was non-existent on Instagram. And I actually have a personal story to share. I got really sick right after the release of class. And I realized I don't think human beings are meant to feel those levels of dopamine, if you know what I mean. For the first 4 days, I was bedridden, and all I was doing was going on Instagram, refreshing, looking at my followers go up, and it felt really good, looking at the positive comments, looking at how much you guys like loved it and like accepted our characters and stuff. And after about day 4, I realized that I started feeling a little bit low, a little bit depressed. And that's when I called my mom, actually. She's sitting right there. And I had to fly back home. And what I've seen in a lot of younger people is that social media can be really detrimental to mental health. Because I feel like now your image on social media, your on-screen image is just so much more important than your real-life persona. And that's like the biggest difference from when I was young to now, I think.
I think teenagers are chronically online, and there is this new thing which is called not wanting to be perceived, which is a very rampant thing now. Is that people, like these kids who are online, they have a completely separate online persona. It's almost like an avatar that you have online, and they live vicariously through those Instagram or Twitter profiles. And I think, of course, it will have consequences, good or bad. I mean, we're fairly new into it. I don't know what it means. Of course, it comes with, like he said, detrimental to mental health, but I feel also as human beings, we're extremely adaptable. I think I read a study where now, in fact, you can text and walk. Your brain has kind of like tuned you into like being able to walk on or cross the road while texting, because we're just, you know, as human beings, we evolve, we adapt. So I feel it'll be a while before we truly understand the effects of it. But yes, we're chronically online, and we do not want to be perceived.
You know, you've, with class, opened up a series of conversations about these issues, which never happened before. Naina, when you read the script and you saw some of the scenes, it's not something that most Indian films or series talk about or delve into. Were you also scared that you'd end up also offending some sections of society, that you'd offend the conservative Indian?
First of all, when we got the show, and they were saying that it was an official adaptation of Elite, that is the first time that I engaged with Elite as a show. And when I saw it, I realized that actually this would be really such a strong piece of material to adapt to an Indian setting, because there's so much to talk about. You know, with the class divide, there's so much nuance that if done well and if handled by the right makers, it would actually be super impactful. And then when I saw Oshim Aluwalia's name attached to it, and I saw Netflix attached to it, there was a sense of, I don't know, in my gut, I just knew that it would do it. Of course, when you actually shoot the material and you know, you see things that are happening on social media with other projects, you know, there is of course a lot of anxiety and nerves with, okay, I hope that the message that we're trying to deliver so authentically and honestly is perceived correctly, as Moses said, the fear of perception or how we want to be perceived. But I think everybody came to this project with so much honesty and really trying to put a mirror without really trying to make a judgment. And because everybody, all the characters on the show are of different class backgrounds or whatever, there are different entry points for every viewer to come into the show. So you could come in through a Sabha, you could come in through a Dheeraj, you could come in through a Koyal, and you would have a completely different experience based on your life. So I kind of deviated from the question a little bit, but yeah, I genuinely, I was nervous. I think all of us were, but somewhere we felt that the content was made with the correct intention, and we're happy that it delivered.
So, you know, the thing about class is it talks about an issue that perhaps you see beyond education as well. In so many parts of our society, we look at that class divide, and many people also feel it in their daily lives. So while for you play a character who's from the other side of the tracks, right? And you're joining this really plush school, etc. How really did you train for such a character? Because you had to play that really rural Delhi boy. And add to that, do you ever feel that, you know, there was one experience that I extracted from to focus on the class divide that helped me understand that class divide?
Okay, first of all, thank you India Today for the opportunity and thank you Netflix कि हमें यहाँ आने का मौका दिया. And I'm not from Delhi, I'm from Uttarakhand, I'm from Nainital. So for me it was hard क्योंकि दिल्ली का character है, दिल्ली हरियाणा belt का character है, and the accent part was hard and the physicality was hard and the wittiness is there कि दिल्ली हरियाणा में इंडिया के अंदर हम लोगों में बहुत सारा wittiness है, हम लोग बहुत we Indians are fun. तो बट वो हरियाणा का एक कैरेक्टर करने के लिए बट वो नुआंस बहुत ज़रूरी है. आप लैंग्वेज को अच्छे से समझते हो, एक्सेंट को बहुत अच्छे से समझते हो. दैट वाज अ हार्ड पार्ट फॉर मी. एट द सेम टाइम आई वाज बिल्डिंग लाइक माय फिजिक एंड ऑल फॉर द रोल. सो आई यूज्ड टू लाइक डू 2 time training and all for that and used to do accent classes and I used to call my friend हरियाणा से कि क्या चल रहा है भाई, क्या कर रहा है आजकल के. तो बेसिक we used to talk for like hours. And we did that and also we were doing our intimacy work with Moses and Naina and हम सब लोग काफ़ी nervous रहते थे क्योंकि it was our first show and हम लोग set पे हम most of the time awkward ही रहते थे. We used to do a lot of like rehearsal before that and मैं नैना से कहता था नैना कैसे करेंगे सीन, like we don't know how to like do this scene and luckily हमारे director काफ़ी अच्छे हैं and Netflix we had like our intimacy coordinator on set. तो काफ़ी अच्छे से हम लोगों ने शूट किया एंड वी वर वेरी कंफर्टेबल ऑन सेट एंड वी यूज्ड टू आस्क आवर डायरेक्टर कि व्हाई यू शूटिंग दिस पर्टिकुलर सीन, लाइक व्हाई बली इज लाइक कमिंग आउट लाइक दिस, व्हाई इज विद कोयल लाइक दिस पर्टिकुलर कैरेक्टर, लाइक घंटों डिस्कशन चलता था. एंड अबाउट द क्लास डिवाइड एंड सी आई थिंक कैरेक्टर और मेरे में देयर इज अ सिमिलैरिटी. इट्स अबाउट द हसल. आई थिंक आई कम फ्रॉम अ स्मॉल टाउन. So for me it's like मैंने हसल किया हुआ हमेशा. मैं because of the discipline, consistency, I have an army background, so I think it's in my DNA. So like उससे हमेशा मेहनत कर करके like I have only one thing, hard work. उससे I think मैं आज I'm sitting here.
But my sense is when you're talking is that you're completely opposite to Bali. Is that true?
Yeah.
Completely different?
Yeah.
What was the first day on set like, Zed, for all of you? Was it really awkward when you all got together, met each other?
Our first day on set, my first day on set would have been different to anyone else's, but it was literally because this is most of our first acting gig ever. So we've never seen cameras like that. There are 200 people around you watching. So my first 2-3 days on set were like horrible. They were just, I couldn't perform. We had to do so many takes and I think it was just really nerve-wracking. But the coolest parts were workshops actually, because that's when we really got to bond and work on our characters and kind of become friends. Because even bonding during the pandemic was super hard, right? Yeah. Because there are restrictions, we can't really meet outside of workshops. So, I mean, first few days of set, it was nerve-wracking, but the times like the Hooja party scenes and stuff, the days we were all there together, those were like the most fun days.
I just wanted to add to that, because we were all doing this for the first time. It was really nice because the first time we met was in workshops. And then as we progressed through the show, which was supposed to be shot over 3 months, but ended up being shot over 2 years, it became like an acting school where we would swap notes and, document each other's growth and see, hey, this is what I was tackling when I was starting out, but I'm really good at this now. How are you feeling? How are the nerves? So that was really nice. And now to end this entire journey with the show coming out and doing so well, we're again swapping notes. What are we doing next? How do we tackle this environment? So it's been really just, it's been great to have 11 cast members to swap notes with. I don't think a lot of people get that. And to do this journey alone is so daunting with the stakes. So I'm really thankful for all of my cast members, even today, to be here together is amazing.
Oh, amazing. I can feel the chemistry of all of you, I think, when we were talking backstage as well. Chintan, tell us about your experience as well. You are a Guju boy who then came on board to play a boy from Jammu and Kashmir to talk about his struggles as well in merging and blending in society.
Yeah. So honestly, my struggles were very common. I was struggling with physics, chemistry and maths in 11th, 12th. I was struggling with trigonometry and differential calculus was still okay, but integral calculus, I still can't forget it. So honestly, I didn't have a lot of exposure to, let's say I was just in Rajkot for 18 years of my life. And then I shifted to Bombay, but I did theatre for the entire time. my experience was the experience that I think related to the social media section. So I'll just ask a very simple question. What if something is not going right in your life? What do you guys do? क्या करते हो आप लोग? It's like, you solve the problem, right? If the problem is related to money or some sort of validation, you go and solve it. What do? Our generation, we post a picture, we get 10,000 likes and we are satisfied. That's what we do, seriously. So, yeah. And that's where I came, okay, this part is very interesting. There's a scene in the show where Yashika, who's played by Asha Kanga, she was trying to sort of वीर साहब का मूड अच्छा करने की ट्राई कर रही थी एंड वीर राइल्ड अप के शो दिस टू ये बहू बनना है तो मम्मी जी के सामने करना वगैरह वगैरह एंड शी स्टार्टेड क्राइंग इट वाज आई थिंक वन ऑफ द वर्स्ट मोमेंट्स ऑफ हर लाइफ बट व्हाट शी डिड नेक्स्ट वाज डायरेक्टली टुक द पिक्चर्स शी पोस्टेड ऑन सोशल मीडिया नाउ शी इज ग्रेट सो व्हाट हैपेंड एग्जैक्टली ओके आई थिंक बाय स्टेइंग अराउंड सोशल मीडिया for a long time, I think we have, like, at least us as generations, have started thinking of that thing as a reality. And I have said it somewhere else also, I'll say it, कि I think social media में लोग जैसे हैं वैसे नहीं है. Social media में लोग वैसे हैं जैसे वो बनना चाहते हैं. And the gap between जो बनना चाहते हैं और जो है वो बहुत ज़्यादा है. And that is where I think I come in because I have that experience. I have the experience because mostly when you study, when you are from a tier 2 city, what do you generally do? A, you study. B, you spend time on social media or you watch Netflix, of course. Now there's class, so definitely you have to watch Netflix all the time, please. And so these are the three things I was with all the time. And this part specifically related to me the most because I myself do it. And I don't despise it, but I know it's not the solution, it's a solace.
Yeah. Very, very well said. Yeah. We've run out of time, but I just wanted to get a sense, Gurfati, if you can tell me, what can we expect really from season 2?
Oh, wow. We actually have no idea. It's too early right now. But, I mean, first, if everyone's not watched it, first you guys should definitely watch season 1. But I think they're in writing, and season 2 will happen very soon. And I think it's safe to say that we're all very excited about it. It will be bigger, better, and
some crazy
more
stuff.
controversial, hopefully, and more of bully twerking as well.
One final question before I wrap this up. I want you all to choose one character that you would have liked to play in class and why. Zain, starting.
Bully. 1000%. I want to go twerk.
I think for me it would be Mr. Kalra, which is Koel Kalra's father.
Okay.
I think he's the Indian Gandolfini. So.
Nice. Cool.
I think I'd like to play Farooq.
Oh, thank you. But I'm playing it.
I would love to be poetic and like be, involved in the architecture and history of Delhi. Yeah, it would be lovely.
I think for me, I'd love to play Dhruv's character. He's closer.
Because of me?
Huh?
Because of me?
Because of you. We'll take that, bro. We'll take that.
Because of you.
So
I said no. Veer.
Why?
I think multi-layered character. I think he's a like son. At the time lover. There's a like masculine boy at the same time. Like kind of a multiple layered character. So I want to play that kind of a character.
Okay, and finally, Chintan.
Honestly, me, man. Just Farooq, nobody else. I love my character. And I think this question was asked like multiple times, but I've said all the time, just Farooq, nobody else. I love Farooq.
Interesting. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here at the India Today Conclave. Can we have a big round of applause for them? And all the very best for season 2 of class.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys, you were great on stage and on screen as well. But let me right now quickly, just before I let you guys go, just stay on the stage as I call upon Ravi Arya, Hindustan Power advisor, to come up on stage and present a small token of our appreciation to the star cast of Class. Ladies and gentlemen, raise a warm applause. Thank you guys. Lots of luck for season 2. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's quickly move on to our last session before lunch. Give us about 10 seconds to turn around our stage and we're ready to go. Once again, on all the sessions that have taken place yesterday and today at the India Today Conclave in its 20th year with our theme, the India Moment, the highlights of that will be encapsulated in our next edition of the India Today magazine. So do remember to pick it up. Thank you, Prerna. That's hers. All right, let me introduce you to our next session, Bioswitches and Age Clocks, the jaw-dropping science of age and disease reversal. Research that makes lifespan just a number. This session is brought to you by RP Sanjeev Goenka Group. All right, before we get you this session and introduce you to our session's moderator, we also have a short film for you that looks into age reversal. Well, after our film, I suddenly see a lot of you suddenly perk up and pay a lot more attention. But to take you through our next session, let me invite on stage our session's moderator, Kali Puri, Vice Chairperson, the India Today Group.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're fast coming to an era where we will be celebrating our DNA age and not our birth age. Our birthdays will mean we get younger and not older. Imagine that. I have with me the handsome, miracle, almost 54-year-old doctor from Harvard Medical School who specialized in molecular genetics. He promises no aging, no wrinkles, no disease, and possibly choosing your own death date. Author of Lifespan and professor of genetics. Welcome. There are many beautiful people here today in the audience, but everyone likes a few tips, right? So, first of all, can you explain to the audience here what is the basic theory of reversing aging and bioswitches?
Well, thank you, Kali. Thank you for having me today. So the science of aging and aging reversal has come a long way in the past 20 years. When I started at Harvard Medical School, it was considered crazy to try and slow down aging, let alone reverse it. But the science is now at a point where we really do understand what drives aging, and also that there's a backup copy of youth in every one of our many trillions of cells that we've just recently learned how to access and reboot the body like you would reboot an old computer and reinstate the youthfulness of tissues and organs and make them work again like they were young. And this is only a few years old now, but the technology is far beyond what I thought I would see in my lifetime, and it's only getting faster in its development.
So can you explain the basic theory, which is about keeping the body under a state of constant stress to activate the longevity genes? How does that work?
Yeah, you mentioned the bioswitches. What we discovered in my lab and in many labs around the world that there are genes that control how long we live. Some of us are born with the best versions of those genes, and those people tend to live over 100. Those with parents, like the Prime Minister that lived over 100, tend to live also for a long time. But most of us are not born with the perfect set of genes, so we need to do a little extra. And what we've discovered is that how we live our life, what we eat, how much we move, the type of molecules that we ingest every day, how we sleep, how relaxed we are, how many friends we have. This modifies another type of system in the body that's called the epigenome. The epigenome is different from the genome. I think you all know that the genome is the DNA that we get from our parents. The epigenome is what controls the DNA, that tells a brain cell to be different from a liver cell, from a toenail producing cell. And over time, we lose those instructions. The epigenetic instructions become lost. And what we've found is that by living a healthy life, the kind of life that we'll talk about later, you can slow that rate of aging and prevent this corruption of the body's software and even reboot it.
So can we talk a little bit about this style of living? What are the things that we can do to slow that aging process down and activate these genes?
Yeah, well, there's some good and bad news. The good news is that aging is much easier to slow and reverse than we thought. The bad news is that what causes us to slow our aging process is to give our bodies a bit of a shock. In today's lifestyle, most of us have an abundance. Many of us, we have enough food, and we don't need to exercise. That's not the way we used to live, and it's not the way our bodies perform the best. By sitting for most of our lives and eating almost constantly, 3 meals a day for many of us,
we end up turning off these body switches, and the body ages faster and faster. So we've built a world that's very comfortable, but the backlash is that we age faster. So what we've discovered in my lab, in studies in yeast cells that make bread and beer, in worms and flies and mice and monkeys and now humans, is that we want to put our bodies into a state of adversity, make the body feel a little bit uncomfortable. So how do we do that? Well, we can skip meals, we can exercise, we can eat food that is plucked from the ground when it's also stressed, because they have wonderful chemicals in them that make us healthier. And we can also get enough rest and calm down the sleep that leads to inflammation and other things like that. So really you want to make your body fearful of running out of food, or fearful that you're having to run away from a tiger. And that turns on the body's defenses against aging, we've learned. But that doesn't reverse aging so much. That requires a little bit more attention, which we've only recently figured out how to control.
So this business about skipping meals, just as we are having a session before lunch, can we talk a little bit about skipping meals? What do you recommend as a diet for slowing down the aging process?
There is a set of genes that I wrote about in my book, Lifespan, that's called the sirtuins. And they get turned on when there's not enough energy in the body. So if you don't have a lot of sugar in your bloodstream or a lot of protein, they will get turned on. And they defend the body against the damage that causes the aging process. And so what I've, over time, learned to do is to skip meals. I'm not always successful. Sometimes I have breakfast in beautiful places. But for my goal is to not eat a large meal until dinner. And then I eat a very healthy vegan meal and very rarely alcohol. And this diet that I have gone on to for now about 18 months, my partner, Serena Poon, who's a nutritionist and a longevity expert as well, moved me from what I thought was a healthy diet, Mediterranean diet, with some red wine and cheese. I went completely to almost completely to plants. And my body has responded. I look better. I think my skin is better. I feel better. My memory is certainly better. But I think it's not just what you eat, it's also when you eat. And this constant eating, 3 meals a day plus snacks, is making us age faster than we need to.
So are you recommending intermittent fasting?
Well, the way we put it, Serena and I, is you want to eat within a certain window. And so I like to eat within a period of about 6 hours a day and not more. I can snack. Some snacks might be some sugar-free chocolate or some nuts or some avocado. It's not a crime to eat if you're a little bit hungry, but don't eat a big meal if you can until either late at night or have it in the morning, because you want to have a period where your body is not ingesting food, and it will turn on its defenses against disease and aging.
See, can you talk a little bit about the fact when you went almost 20 hours without eating, and you did that for a period of time?
Yeah, so 20 hours is a long time to go without food every day, but your body gets used to it. I found that after 2 weeks of doing that, I was not hungry anymore. If I felt a little bit hungry, I would drink a lot of tea. Serena and I have green tea matcha, which is filled with all these wonderful chemicals from stress plants, and drink a lot of water and tea. I think here in India, we know how to do that. And that is the solution. And we often think, oh, we need to feed the body the sugar, that, have a dessert, have some lollies. But really, your body can make its own sugar. Your liver makes sugar. You just need to wait 2 weeks for it to get used to it. Our liver is pretty lazy. But after 2 weeks, it learns, in the morning I have to make some sugar. And what I found is that my liver making sugar is a lot smarter than my eyes and my mouth eating sugar. Because when we eat 3 meals, our sugar goes up and down, and we get lots of energy, then we crash and we get brain fog, and then we eat again and we're hungry, and you go like this through the day. When you don't eat until dinner, you're steady with your sugar because your liver knows what to do, and you can focus and just have a lot of energy.
So 1 meal a day, you would recommend that? And what would you recommend in that 1 meal?
Yeah, well, try to eat try to at least skip 1 meal a day. That would be my recommendation. And if you can do 2, even better. Some people go without food for 3 days. I've never been able to do that. I like food. But what's in the food? Well, as I mentioned, I went from drinking a lot of red wine because red wine actually, the component of red wine, resveratrol, was discovered in my lab to slow aging. So I thought, drink a lot of red wine, that's got to be healthy. But the new research just over the last 2 years says that drinking alcohol every day is really not good for you. So I've cut out alcohol and I've focused on plants. So this vegan diet has no dairy, which is very difficult here in India.
Yes.
But we do that. We substitute milk with coconut and nut-based milks and yogurts. They taste very good as well. And then so a typical dinner would be, well, plant-based meals that taste just or even better than what I used to eat. And I don't feel like I'm lacking anything. And you might ask, well, why would you do that? Well, there's a lot of science behind it. The protein that's in plants has a ratio of amino acids that stimulates these longevity genes, the sirtuins, and another one called mTOR. And if you always eat meat every meal, your body's just not fighting aging the way it could if you ate more plants.
So you are against meat in that sense?
Well, I love meat. I would love to eat meat. It tastes really good. It's just the science says plants give you better bang for the buck for longevity than meat. I mean, you can eat meat occasionally. Fish, for example, has a lot of great omega-3 fatty acids. So I'm not against meat. I just think try to focus more on plants if you can.
You said something about stressed vegetables. Can you talk a little bit about that? What is that versus, normal organic vegetables?
Yeah, so when farmers grow vegetables, they try to grow them as fast as possible. It's much more economical. The problem with that is that giving plants a lot of sunlight and water and fertilizer makes them very happy. And as I just told you, a happy organism is not a healthy organism. So when plants have a little bit of stress, so a little bit of lack of water, or there's a little bit of a caterpillar on there, or even not a lot of sun, in the case of green tea matcha, they put the plants in the shade, then those plants respond in a stress response. They turn on the production of chemicals called polyphenols. Resveratrol from red wine is a polyphenol that's produced when the plants get stressed. And it's my theory, which has a name, a terrible name, I apologize. It's called xenohormesis. Xeno means...
I was hoping you were not going to bring it up because of the terrible name.
Yeah, well, just remember, if your food is stressed, then you get the benefits. Stress your food so you don't have to. And so what we focus on, Serena and I, are plants that are full of color. Serena says, eat the rainbow. So try to eat bright red and purple, dark green colored vegetables, because those are the ones that have these polyphenols that can turn on the body's defenses. And actually in my lab, if we give polyphenols to mice, they actually get healthier and run further like they've been exercising. So these little molecules, polyphenols, can actually not substitute, but can help you with your exercise and your otherwise healthy plant diet.
So in superstores, we're going to have inorganic, organic, and stressed vegetables now.
That's a great business plan. We should do that.
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about sugar, because sugar is very addictive, and it's a real pick-me-up. So is there a healthy way to have sugar?
Depends on the sugar. If you're talking about cane sugar, sucrose, I would try to limit that as much as possible, unfortunately. I gave up eating desserts in my 40s, though I do steal it from people at the table. So Serena orders the desserts for me. But really, sugar is something that is known to be toxic in the long run. It's sucrose, which forms glucose, will attach to your body's components. Your proteins will become what's called glycated, and that's known to drive aging as well. So that's why we try to not eat too much, and so we don't want to eat a lot of sugar. But there are substitutes. There's, for example, monk fruit produces sugar, which Serena has told me to try, and it tastes just as good as sugar, and it doesn't give you that spike, and that should be good for longevity.
What about stevia, maple syrup, honey, coconut sugar?
They're all on a various scale. Honey is not so good in large amounts. Stevia, I think, is okay, but it's all on a scale. I think the best is allulose or monk fruit, and then a bit above that, a bit worse than that is stevia. But at the bad end is glucose, sucrose, and honey. But honey has a lot of goodness in it, so I wouldn't say avoid honey, just don't eat too much of it.
How would you classify sugar in fruit? Like, would that be something you would try and replace desserts with? Like at the end of a meal, would you just have a piece of fruit?
Yeah, for sure, fruit is good. I would avoid fruit juices unless they're from fruits that don't have a lot of sugar, but oranges and apples and pineapple have a lot of sugar that I generally avoid.
Okay. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about your vitality pills. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the vitality pills and what we can do to make ourselves, eternally young and beautiful?
Yeah. So I've been taking supplements and experimenting on myself for about 20 years. And my father has also been doing it. He's now 83 and in perfect health. And what I learned through my research and through my own self-experimentation and then clinical trials in hospitals is that there's certain molecules mostly from plants that provide the benefits of fasting and exercise as well. And so I was taking these separately. I take a variety of them. Do you want me to go into which ones?
Yes, I mean, don't go into the details, but we would all like to know where these pills are available and what's in them. I'm sure everyone's thinking, where can I get the prescription?
All right. So if you don't have a pen, you can go to my book, and I wrote these chemicals, these supplements down in my book. In the English version, it's page 304. And there are three main things that I take and have taken for over a decade. The one chemical that I take every day is resveratrol, which is the red wine chemical, and that comes from grapes. And so that one gets sprinkled into some yogurt in the morning. I also take a molecule.
That's the one which red wine has, right? But it's the amount you take is equivalent to 750 glasses of red wine per day.
I don't recommend getting it from red wine. So the other molecule is called NMN, not to be confused with M&Ms. Don't mix those up. NMN is a version of vitamin B3 that makes a chemical in the body that we need for life, and that's called NAD. And as we get older, we make less and less of this. And without NAD, these sirtuins that we discovered, slow aging, remember the genes that we discovered? Mm-hmm. They don't work without a lot of NAD. So as we get older, our defenses decline. And so by taking this supplement, we know that it doubles the levels of NAD back to when I was age 20. And there's now clinical trials that my colleagues at Harvard have done that says that NMN has some health benefits in early studies, such as lowering cholesterol and blood pressure. And so I take that one every day as well. I take a half a gram of that currently. And then the third one is metformin. Metformin is a little bit more controversial because it's a drug. And it's just classified as a drug. And that doesn't mean it's necessarily dangerous. In fact, it's one of the world's safest drugs. It's used for type 2 diabetes to control blood sugar. And what's been found is that people who take metformin tend to live a lot longer. Even those who don't have type 2 diabetes, there's evidence that they are protected against cardiovascular disease and frailty, and even Alzheimer's disease. And so what I do is I take metformin even though I don't yet have type 2 diabetes.
So metformin, is it a form of this GLP-1 receptor blockers, the skinny pen, Ozempic, which all of Hollywood is apparently on? And they're getting thinner and thinner if you see the red carpet at Oscars. Is that what it is? A form of that?
Well, no, it's actually very different. Metformin will activate your body's energy production and boost mitochondria, which are the little energy packs in your cells. So that's a healthy way to do it. I won't say the brand name, but yeah, these GLP-1 agonists are causing your body to become more insulin sensitive and take up the sugar from your blood and burn fat. And people who take this drug, they do lose weight. So the drug is designed to treat type 2 diabetes, and it's actually a blockbuster, very effective drug. One of my colleagues over in New York, Nir Barzilai, says that in his practice, he essentially now thinks of type 2 diabetes as a curable disease, only in the last few years because of these new drugs. But people who don't have obesity or diabetes are taking it, or they might have obesity, but they certainly don't have type 2 diabetes and they lose weight. The one negative side effect that everyone should be aware of is that people can lose too much fat in the wrong place, including in the face, where you don't want to lose it, especially if you're older. And you can tell if somebody's taking this medicine because they start to look far too thin.
It's called the brand name face, right? I'm not taking the brand name either, but that's what it's called.
Yeah, it is. So you have to be very careful. I would say it's much better to eat less often and exercise, and you'll get much bigger health benefits than taking that drug.
Let's talk a little bit about exercise. What kind of exercise are you recommending? Like a lot of interval training, running, strength, yoga?
Yeah, well, yoga is very important, I think, here
Are you
in
just saying
India.
that because Serena is sitting opposite us, or?
Yeah, Serena's down there, below the stage here. So Serena is the equivalent of me with more of a practice and knowledge about yoga and nutrition and mind and body. And I'm Mr. Biology and Chemicals. But together, we do recommend a lot of stretching and yoga, meditation to reduce stress, though I'm not good at it. And I'm also not good at exercise. I'm often on planes. Serena and I have been traveling for 2 months now, so we don't get a lot of exercise in. That said, I used to, and what I used to do was to exercise 3 times a week and lose my breath. You want to be able to be moving so fast that you cannot carry out a conversation easily. That's when you know you're becoming hypoxic, low in oxygen. And this low oxygen, we think, is a very good stimulator of this stress on the body, and your body responds in a positive way to build muscle, get better blood flow, and also your tissues will put out chemicals that slow aging. So really, if you can just lose your breath for 10 minutes, 3 times a week, that can give remarkable health benefits, lowering the rates of disease by 30%. So a little bit goes a long way.
Can we get a mic to Serena? So Serena is a proponent of yoga, and I want to know what she thinks about that, because in yoga you don't necessarily stress the body to a point where you lose your breath or you get out of breath.
That's true. There's different types of yoga, of course, especially in the US. I'm based in LA. There's yoga that is used more as a form of exercise, and that can be quite stressful on the body. I think we stress our bodies in a slightly different way when it comes to yoga, because we're really stressing our mind. You know, it's really about how long you can hold still, how you can clear your mind, how you can hold a pose. That's stress in a different way. It's really more stress on the mind, whereas Dave is talking about the stresses on the body, but effectually it will still have the same results. So, and David can share about that. So we're looking for that balance in a way where we're balancing our body, but there is a stress to our mind, and getting to that stress point is then where we find balance.
So you two are from two opposite ends of the spectrum in a way. You're more from a Western school of thought. She's more from an Eastern school of thought. What are the things that you guys agree on over the dinner table, and what are the things that you don't agree on?
Yeah, people wonder how do we get along, because
Opposites attract.
I'm 100% reality, and Serena's very spiritual. But we bonded over our love for health and wellness and respect for the human body. We both believe that we can help millions, if not billions of people live healthier, longer lives with our message that covers both Eastern and Western. What do we agree on? We agree on nutrition, basically because I do whatever Serena tells me to do. But what we disagree on are things like how important is the spiritual side of life. I struggle trying to believe in things that I have no evidence for, and Serena has a lot of faith, and she's always right, so I think she's onto something. we tend not to disagree on a lot of things. I think our interpretation of how it's working is different. I will say, oh, well, it's this molecule hits this molecule, and she says, no, it's that the body has different energies and it's working this way, and according to Ayurvedic practices, this is how it's working. It really is, it's a wonderful combination, the two of us, because we learn from each other, and often we end up with an explanation for phenomena that includes both old and new science.
Well, I'd say we differ a little bit when it comes to meditation. That's a core practice that David sort of dabbles in a little bit.
Dabbles in means what, like 2 minutes a day, or?
I don't know, honey, how much do you meditate a day?
Well, my problem is I try to meditate and I always fall asleep and I start snoring. So I'm not good at meditation. What I found instead works for me is to have quiet time, we call it. I close my eyes for 11 minutes, hopefully at least twice a day, and have some gratitude during that quiet time, or listen to someone talking about stoicism. That's what I like to do. I struggle with meditation, I will admit, with my crazy lifestyle and my lack of commitment to that. I haven't been successful really, but I really should be, because the benefits on controlling your mind have been proven. I like to talk about animal studies. So in mice, if you modify the mind of mice, so you can change parts of the brain of a mouse, you can actually improve immunity, improve health, even make the mice live longer just by changing parts of the brain. It's very clear that if you can control your mind, calm it down, get it to focus, have the positivity as well, you can have whole body benefits that are often misunderstood by Western medicine.
So with some of the things that you're suggesting, which are not, by the way, easy, going 20 hours without food, or giving up sugar,
and not. That's where we differ too.
You differ there. What is it that?
Well, I'm more about eating within a window, which David shared, that we talk about eating windows. So which may mean more than one meal a day. So you can fast for 12 hours, or 14 or 16 or 18, or David can go to 20. But it's really about making sure you get the nutrients that you need for your body during that window of time that you do eat, in my belief, more than trying to cram everything into one meal. So we differ just slightly on that as well.
So we have, there's a lot of pressure to look good. And nobody else has that pressure more than people who are in a public space. So we have few actors here who are coming in from a hit OTT show called The Class. You can see all the very brightly dressed, fashionable people right here up in front. I'd like to ask them, how tough is the pressure on you guys to look good? And what are the extreme things you've done?
I think it's huge. A lot of us had to de-age essentially for the character. And what you were saying about losing breath or being out of breath, I chanced upon accidentally, because while I was working out for the role, I was boxing like 4 times a week. And I found that I genuinely, like now when people ask me, they're like, oh, we can't guess your age. I can't believe you're so much less older than you.
She's not giving her age away.
Yeah, I was like, oops. No, but it genuinely, I feel like we kind of chanced upon a lot of the things you spoke about today, and they're all making sense now.
So David, I think, sorry, yeah.
Go ahead.
I think you're gonna hate me for this, but I had fruits for like 2 years straight. I was on a fruitarianism diet. I don't know if you know, there's the Robert Morse concept of raw vegan diet. So I was on that. And I still sort of follow it, not exactly because now I have temptations and I go and have something, whatever I need, but mostly I used to drink a lot of juice. And still in the morning I had like, I think, a liter of juice from the hotel itself, and they were like, why are you just drinking? You have a drinking problem of juice. So yeah, so that was one thing with me. So I just wanted to know your views on one thing, if I may.
Please.
Most of the things that you said, and most of the things out there, everything revolves around one thing, and that is firstly separating your body from mucus, like the mucus we produce due to eating a lot of cooked foods. one thing that hasn't been resolved yet is the male pattern baldness, because even in fruitarian in the fruit diet, nobody has actually given a solution to that. So
look at David's hair. Just look at David's hair.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was asking, because at
want
54,
the secret to this.
Yeah, at 54, I want this hair. Yeah, so yeah.
Well, I think I'm lucky, but I also think that if you slow your body's aging, your hair will also slow down in its changes. I don't yet have much gray hair. I will admit my mother also had good hair, so it might be that. But there's a lot of really good science going on. In fact, Serena and I have co-developed a product that was developed for the skin in collaboration with NASA, and it has this space-resistant organism extract in it called Bacillus lysate. And the clinical trials so far are showing hair regrowth. I don't think it's crazy to think in 5 years it'll be common to be able to get your hair back just by spraying something on. The science is there. What we are doing in my lab is we can grow skin and hair artificially in the dish from stem cells, and we can age that skin forwards and then reverse the age. And we're looking for ways to do that with natural ways to do that, so that we can put it into a cream that you could put on the hair and not just make your hair look better, but actually make your whole skin on your head literally be younger than it used to be. And that's what I want to do, is to make the body not just look younger, but literally be younger.
So, a question comes up from there, that if we reboot our body to, let's say, 21 or 16, does our mind reboot to 16 or 21 as well? I mean, am I going to have the same sort of intelligence, creative urges as a 21-year-old or a 16-year-old?
Well, Serena says sometimes I get too young, but there's a happy intermediate.
What do you do when you get too young? Do you get frisky? Do you want to go dancing? What do you do?
You know what young men are like. They're a little bit, a little bit immature. No, don't give Serena the mic. I tend to be a little bit over-enthusiastic, let's say, about things, and I've learned to calm my decision-making and be less reactive. In all seriousness, what we're doing now in my lab at Harvard is, so what we do is, to reverse aging, is we turn on 3 genes that are normally only turned on in very young embryos. So when we're young, when we're just born or before, we are very young. And we stay young because there are 3 genes that are turned on. They're called O, S, and K for short. And when we turn on these 3 genes in the adult tissue, in human adult tissue or in a mouse, those 3 genes make the body younger again. This is the reset of the software. And we can do that not just with the eyes and cure blindness, which we did a couple of years ago. We recently published in January that we could rejuvenate a whole mouse and see aspects of aging reversed. And so that's where we're going, is to truly do a full age reset. Now what we're doing is asking, what happens if you reset the age of the old brain? And we can grow human brain in the lab. If you looked on my Instagram account, you can see little pictures of human brains that we grow. We can make them old, make them old in about a month, make them 70 years old in a month, and then we can reverse that. We can give them Alzheimer's disease, see what happens, and if we reverse it. So here's the punchline. If we reverse the age of an old mouse's brain to make it much younger by 70%, it gets its ability to learn back again. And we're now just testing if it also remembers lost memories. We don't know the answer, but we hope to find out soon.
So we may have a situation where teenagers are world leaders and running the whole economy and every space. I don't know what kind of decisions they would make then. I mean, teenagers are great. Teenagers are great. But I don't know whether we want them to be running the world. We just have a minute left. I wanted to get a little bit into this philosophical and spiritual areas with anti-aging and age reversal. We are in India. We have an ancient concept of karma and God's will. And here you are creating a space where nobody needs to suffer, or at least the rich don't need to suffer, and they can choose their day to die. Are you playing God, doctor?
I don't think that I am. I think that the pursuit of health and wellness and happiness is a natural human endeavor, and it's a very noble cause. And I'm not on this earth to make people live forever. I believe my mission, and with Serena, our mission is to increase the advances, extend the advances that we made last century with medicine, but to make it even more effective, so that with one treatment, we don't just treat cancer, we can treat all the other diseases that affect us by making us younger and fitter. I don't believe that's playing God any more than developing treatments for cancer and heart disease and dementia is playing God. And I think as humans, we've always wanted to live better. We've wanted to modify our environment, modify our bodies to be happier and healthier. What part of this room is natural? I don't think, even this I think is artificial. So we as humans, we adapt, we change our environment, and this is the next step in human evolution. And I think it's the right step, because we all have a right to decide how healthy we are. We can't choose when we were born, but I hope that one day we'll have a choice when we die.
What age would you like to, well, it's a strange question to ask, but what age would you like to die?
I think the answer would be not tomorrow, and that will always be the case. If you're healthy and happy and have friends, you'll never want to die. I know this as a human a trait. And so really the answer is as long as possible, but I'd be happy with another 40 years to do more good work.
So that would be like 100.
100, I hope more. What's happening, we talk about AI at this symposium, the rate of change in this field is going up dramatically, and so the advances that we can make now with the assistance of AI is dramatic. And in our lifetimes, we are truly going to see the ability for our doctors to give us medicines that reverse our age, and we can do that multiple times. And so it's an extremely exciting time to be alive and stay alive.
Thank you so much, doctor. So in conclusion, I think basically we need to trick our body into thinking we're almost dying so that we can live longer. And all those people who give me trouble for causing them stress, hey, I'm helping you live longer. And I hope that after this chat about skipping meals, obviously I'm giving stress to a lot of people here. You can hear the claps, right? After this chat, I hope that you're going to make different choices at lunch, maybe even skip lunch. The doctor's going to be available at lunch. He's definitely not eating any lunch, so you can bomb him with some of your questions. I'm sure some of you have those. And thank you very much, doctor, for being here and helping us through this process. And here's to all of you choosing your own day to die. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kali. Thank you, Mr. Sinclair. Ladies and gentlemen, please raise a warm applause as I call upon Alok Kumar, President and CEO, NEC Corporation India, to come up on stage and present a small token of our appreciation to Mr. David Sinclair. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. All those tips, he could practically give you what, at least 20 years more? We could do better. Mr. Sinclair also has his book available at the Roshanara Hall. So if you want the book, I'm sure all of you want it. There are limited copies, but go get it signed, and maybe you can also chat with Mrs. Sinclair.
Vehicles can be environmentally friendly. Renewable energy can be stable. Our modern lives can be sustainable for the planet. Let's change our perspective and not take our resources for granted. Hitachi is inspiring the world through digital and green technologies. Hitachi's social innovation is powering good.
Can I tell you my dream? We want to make people happier by connecting machines to everything.
Hitachi is collaborating with Suntory Beverage and Food Limited to provide products that are safer by tracking them individually. And by connecting building equipment and optimizing healthcare digitally, we will provide a more comfortable and healthier life.
People can be happier when they're digitally connected.
Oh, I'd love to be connected.
From a land older than time, amidst the magnificent palaces, enveloped in the mystic fog, where the elusive tigers exude a timeless valor, comes India's finest yet, for connoisseurs of fine taste, Royal Ranthambore.
Mixed pickle. Mango. Green chili. Tops pickles. अब 51 flavors में. Tops. इंडिया का टॉप टेस्ट. ये किचन कुछ खास है. कुकिंग का यहाँ अलग अंदाज है. कभी दिल दही बल्ले की विश करता है, तो कभी ये सालसा करता है. पिज्जा पास्ता अपना जादू दिखाता है. और शेजवान सॉस देखो कैसे रंग जमाती है. देसी क्या चाइनीज में भी यहाँ तड़का पड़ता है. दिल कभी रेड कभी ग्रीन चिली पे मरता है. तो आज ही टॉप सॉसेस की वाइड रेंज घर लाएं और हर दिन कुछ नया बनाइए. टॉप्स, इंडिया का टॉप टेस्ट.
We dared to see India differently, to build a better life for you. You deserve a fulfilling life. Your smile inspired us during the pandemic. We delivered the knowledge to the curious ones. We wish for your dreams to fly as our flights do. Now 1.3 billion Indians can explore the world of opportunities. We are here, transforming tomorrow, today. We are NEC.
Vehicles can be environmentally friendly. Renewable energy can be stable. Our modern lives can be sustainable for the planet. Let's change our perspective and not take our resources for granted. Hitachi is inspiring the world through digital and green technologies. Hitachi's social innovation is powering good.
Can I tell you my dream? We want to make people happier by connecting machines to everything.
Hitachi is collaborating with Suntory Beverage and Food Limited to provide products that are safer by tracking them individually. And by connecting building equipment and optimizing healthcare digitally, we will provide a more comfortable and healthier life.
People can be happier when they're digitally connected.
Oh, I'd love to be connected.
From a land older than time, amidst the magnificent palaces, enveloped in the mystic fog, where the elusive tigers exude a timeless valor, comes India's finest yet, for connoisseurs of fine taste, Royal Ranthambore.
Mixed pickle. Mango. Green chili. Tops pickles. अब 51 flavors में. Tops. इंडिया का टॉप टेस्ट. ये किचन कुछ खास है. कुकिंग का यहाँ अलग अंदाज है. कभी दिल दही बल्ले की विश करता है, तो कभी ये सालसा करता है। पिज्जा पास्ता अपना जादू दिखाता है। और शेजवान सॉस देखो कैसे रंग जमाती है। देसी क्या, चाइनीज में भी यहाँ तड़का पड़ता है। दिल कभी रेड कभी ग्रीन चिली पे मरता है। तो आज ही टॉप सॉसेस की वाइड रेंज घर लाएं और हर दिन कुछ नया बनाइए। टॉप्स, इंडिया का टॉप टेस्ट।
We dared to see India differently to build a better life for you. You deserve a fulfilling life. Your smile inspired us during the pandemic. We delivered the knowledge to the curious ones. We wish for your dreams to fly as our flights do. Now 1.3 billion Indians can explore the world of opportunities. We are here, transforming tomorrow today. We are NEC.
Good. Coming up on entry. Vehicle reports entry interface. We are beginning to feel the atmosphere as we go in here. It is reporting that we are seeing G's on the order of 11 to 12 Earth G's. Commercial 2 is starting. We are now getting telemetry from Odyssey. We should have parachute deploy around Mach 1.7. Parachute is deployed. We are decelerating. Chill has separated. We're on the ground. We're down to 90 meters per second at an altitude of 6.5 kilometers and descending. Standing by for batch separation. We are in powered flight. We're at altitude of 1 kilometer descending. Standing by for sky crane. Sky crane is started. Single laws, you remain strong. Touchdown confirmed. We're safe on Mars.
Now, I have no idea how many times I've seen that video in the last 10 years, but I think everyone remembers that heart-stopping few minutes right before the Curiosity rover landed on Mars. Probably not many of you would know that that parachute system, that amazing system you just saw, screaming towards Mars and carrying the rover, was traveling at more than twice the speed of sound. And the person who built that amazing system for an alien world is the person sitting next to me today. Her name is Dr. Anita Sengupta. And that system that she built, the one you just saw in that video, that amazing parachute system, is just one item in what has been a spellbinding career that has transcended, literally transcended worlds, dimensions, measurements, and everything we think we understand about the world. Now, a formal description of Dr. Sengupta would be that she's an aerospace scientist, she's a rocket scientist, she's an engineer, she's a pilot, she's a veteran of the space program. But I have followed Dr. Sengupta's work for a long time, and I have a name for her. I'm going to call her a dimensional ninja, because that's what she is, and you'll agree with me by the end of this talk, because everything that she's done, everything that she's dipped her fingers into has pushed up against dimensions. The systems that she's built, the science that she's conducted, the machines that she has researched and developed currently power spacecraft that are in the asteroid belt. She led a team of scientists that have created the coldest spot in the known universe on board the International Space Station. And when Dr. Anita Sengupta isn't turning the physical world on its head, she is someone who also spends her time, and I need to refer to my notes because this is a long list. She's a pilot, she's a sports motorcyclist, she's an advanced open water scuba diver, she's a mountain biker, she's a high-speed sports motorcyclist, she's a snowboarder, she's a mountaineer, and a runner. So clearly she hasn't been doing very much with her life. I want to start, Dr. Sengupta, by first of all saying what a privilege it is to have you here at the India Today Conclave. You've been an inspiration to
thousands of people here in India, I can tell you, and I'm sure you've seen that on your travels. But I want to start with that video we just showed our viewers. Those amazing few minutes, I remember it. I was in the India Today newsroom, watching that video when it happened. Was that the highlight of your career? Seeing something that you developed, something that could have gone completely wrong, in an alien world, twice the speed of sound, landing successfully. What was that like?
It was probably the most frightening aspect of my career, just because when it's actually landed, it happened 14 minutes ago due to the distance between Earth and Mars. So it was probably the most scary thing, but it was also the most exciting thing.
It's been described as 7 minutes of terror. And we've seen some of those images inside the control room. We saw the absolute ecstasy on the faces of the scientists and the telemetry engineers and those who were observing. Where were you when that was happening?
So that is the primary control room that they show on TV, but there's actually an entry, descent, and landing control room, which is in a different building, where we're bringing in all the telemetry and analyzing to see whether or not every aspect of the mission is happening. Because one of the reasons why you do these missions is you learn from them. So in the event things don't go quite right, you want to know when it didn't work out so you can learn from that and build that into the next system that you design. So there's an engineering control room, which isn't shown on TV, and then there's the primary one that you see on TV.
Dr. Sengupta was 6 years old when she was watching Star Trek and Doctor Who on television. And I read somewhere that there was one magic moment when you were 6 years old, and everything that you've ever done since then followed from that one moment. Tell us about that. Was it really you watching Star Trek, being inspired by it, and deciding, that's all I want to do now?
Well, so my father was a PhD mechanical engineer. He actually went to IIT Bombay, and so I used to watch reruns of Star Trek with my dad. So I always was fascinated by space exploration and the potential for alien worlds. So I really did always know that I wanted to do that. It was more a question, do I become an engineer like my dad, or do I become an astrophysicist? And I went the engineering route.
Dr. Sengupta actually had the honor, and William Shatner also had the honor of meeting Dr. Sengupta. We've got some images that we're going to put on that screen for you, where you actually got to meet him. Captain Kirk from Star Trek himself. There's that picture where she's meeting, the guy who played Captain Kirk for his show, I Don't Understand, where she was talking about, many of these things. And he actually asked you a really, really great question that I think most of us would want to know. Why do we want to go to Mars? Why is there such a big effort to want to go to Mars?
So I think it's in the nature of humanity to explore, and in the past people would explore by going to different continents, exploring under the ocean, and now the next phase of exploration is exploring space. And it's also natural for us to want to expand as a species, and so one of the easiest places for us to get to and actually set up a colony is on the surface of Mars, just because that's only one planet out from us. So I think it's just in the nature of humanity to explore and push the envelope.
You spent 16 years at NASA. Leading some of the most cutting-edge research projects. The systems you've built, aren't just on paper or in the realms of research on a lab. They're out there, literally in our solar system, being proven. The asteroid belt, on Mars, and elsewhere. In your 16 years and beyond, Dr. Sengupta, have you ever come close? Have there been moments in your work, in your research, when you've come close to getting a sense that there's going to be a breakthrough to that eternal question, are we alone in the universe?
So I actually absolutely believe that we're not alone in the universe, and it's actually probabilistically unlikely that we would be the only organism. And I think when I was working on the development of a cryo-explorer for Europa, which is one of the moons of Jupiter, it actually has a liquid water ocean. So I honestly think that when we're able to send something to melt through the ice on Europa, we will find some type of life form. It probably won't be an intelligent life form like us, but it will be an organism. And that really will change our perspective, because it's not just about Earth where life exists. It could be many, many places in our solar system, as well as beyond our solar system in our galaxy and in other galaxies.
So you're saying that life definitely exists outside the solar system, but you're saying that you believe that Europa, which is a moon of Jupiter, right here in our solar system, when that probe actually goes there, digs down into that moon, and reaches that liquid ocean, you strongly believe there will be life. So there will be alien life, as it were, in our solar system.
I think it's quite likely. And for example, one of the moons of Saturn, Enceladus, there's plumes that erupt from the surface of the moon, and we already know that there's organic material in those plumes because of the Cassini spacecraft. So just from a probabilistic perspective, it is very likely that we'll find organic aggregates and potentially, let's say, some sort of single-celled organism in those oceans.
While all of us are processing some of these things we're talking about, stuff that's happening in Mars, the asteroid belt, systems moving at blinding speed that are beyond our immediate conception, there are many, I'm sure, Dr. Sengupta, who've asked you through your travels and your talks about why are we looking so much into space? Why spend all this money on space travel and, millions, if not billions of dollars on a space program when we've got so many problems to solve here on Earth? How do you, I know a bit of the answer, but how do you address that question?
So it is a really important discussion, and it's an important debate to have, but when you develop new technology, when you do fundamental research, you never know what it's going to lead to in the future, but you still do it. And some examples of that would be the laser. People said 50 years ago, what is a laser going to be used for? It's used for everything, from medical devices to laser pointers to manufacturing. And when you look at the space program, the number of technologies that have been created that have made our world a better place when it comes to energy technologies like fuel cells, like solar arrays, when it comes to energy storage technologies like batteries, it actually improves the quality of our life here on Earth, and it translates to economic development, economic gain, which ultimately creates a better society for us. And I think the other really important one is that it actually motivates young people to become scientists and engineers. So me, I never would have been a scientist and engineer without the space program. And so with that motivation comes a tremendous return on investment from the space program.
We've got some nice imagery from Dr. Sengupta's work, which we'll keep flipping on that screen behind us. But the reason why I believe Dr. Sengupta when she answers that question, which I'm sure most space scientists are asked, is because she's a person who has actually literally put her money where her mouth is, taken many of the learnings and technologies, her education, her career, her achievements in space research, and applied them to real problems here on Earth. Isn't that true, Dr. Sengupta? The things that you're doing right now are about solving problems here on Earth.
Yeah, so in 2017, I decided to leave NASA and join a startup developing green transportation, because I truly believe that my engineering skills from the space program, the technologies that we've developed in the space program, the mindset associated with making the impossible possible has a real translation to making our quality of life here on Earth by mitigating climate change.
One of my passions, apart from everything else I do, is aviation. And reading about Dr. Sengupta's newest venture, it's only a few years old, it's called Hydroplane. And we've got a picture of an aircraft that I'm going to put up on that screen for you in just a moment. There it is. Dr. Sengupta now heads a company called Hydroplane, which is researching a kind of hydrogen fuel cell, a power system for light aircraft, helicopters, that is completely emission-free, completely noise-free. Imagine an aircraft that is emission-free, no emissions, no carbon footprint, no noise, completely safe, and a huge number of other benefits. Because, Dr. Sengupta, every year, there's this one thing that goes viral on the internet. We all see a picture of this huge bunch of luxury business jets parked on this lovely idyllic airport in Switzerland, and these are business jets belonging to some of the biggest business leaders and world leaders, all trooping to Davos for the World Economic Forum. They get off these lovely business jets that have emitted all these things into the atmosphere, and then they lecture the entire world about emissions, and they lecture the entire world about green energy and clean energy and commitments and things like that. You're literally doing that. The technology that you're building now could actually make aircraft like those clean and emission-free. How far along are you?
So yes, and this comes back to a prior question, which is hydrogen fuel cell technology was originally developed for the space program. It was developed for the Apollo mission. It was developed for the space shuttle. It's a really efficient form of energy storage. So the company is 3 years old. I founded it 3 years ago, and we're going to have our first flight this year. And this technology not only supports small aircraft and helicopters, it also supports vehicles which currently are operating on diesel, like trucks, transit buses, and rail. So it has the ability to decarbonize multiple forms of ground transport with electrification, with green hydrogen.
Because this is something that I would say India desperately needs. The ability to plug green, clean, emission-free energy into as many places as possible. Transportation, aviation, sources of energy for the country as well. Is that something you're looking at specifically? How India can plug into this entire project?
Definitely. So I think India is on the verge of an energy revolution and energy evolution. And I think instead of going the battery route, I think the government and the people here want to go the green hydrogen route. So if India can become a producer of green hydrogen, if India can become a manufacturer or developer of hydrogen fuel cell technology, not only can it decarbonize India's own carbon footprint and transportation network, it can also sell it to the larger Asian community and the larger global community. So now is the time for this technology, and it has the ability to take off.
Paint us a specific picture, Dr. Sengupta, of how India would be able to benefit from fuel cell technology and green energy technology in specific areas that are achievable in the near term. Because for too long, green energy has seemed like a faraway castle to most of us. But the research you're doing in this technology means that the aircraft that she has, the system that she's built, and we have a picture of that aircraft, is going to fly this year, which means it's real. You can touch it. You're going to see it fly this year itself. There's the aircraft.
That's our aircraft. So I actually flew this aircraft myself from Texas to Los Angeles, where we're based. Then we ripped out the internal combustion engine from it, which is piston driven, and we're now building it up with a hydrogen fuel cell power plant that we've developed ourselves. But it doesn't just have to be aircraft. We can also put it into a very polluting diesel truck, as well as a transit bus, which is currently carrying a diesel system. So it allows you to be much more efficient in terms of how much fuel you have to use, and you only put out liquid water in terms of what's coming out of the fuel cell.
Just imagine that it's already going to fly. That's how near it is. That's how achievable it is. It's not a research project. It's actually going to fly. And are you going to be the one flying it when it makes that first flight with the hydrogen fuel cell?
I probably won't do the first flight because my investors wouldn't like that, but I probably will do the second or the third flight. But I am a commercial pilot, so I am able to fly it and fly people for hire. So maybe that'll be part of an operational business in future.
And once this technology gets proven, we're talking about small aircraft, small helicopters, possibly big drones as well. I can see a lot of military applications for this kind of thing. Could this be scaled? And I'm asking because not many of us understand how this technology works. But could this at some point be scaled towards civil aviation, passenger flights, the flights people like us take?
Absolutely. So we're only starting small because when you look at the certification of new technology, it's able to get the product on the market sooner if you start with a smaller system. So this is a 200 kilowatt, 270 horsepower system, right? But it's modular, so you can go up to 500 kilowatts, up to a megawatt. So you can support twin turboprop aircraft soon, just not tomorrow, because it takes a few years to get certified. But from an MVP perspective, you want to get a fast go-to-market strategy, hence the initial smaller application. But the other application is marine. So marine is another big polluter. Perfect solution for hydrogen fuel cell technology.
So civil aviation, and I want to talk about that because that is something that affects our lives. How would it change things? Just take, for example, any flight, any a Boeing or an Airbus aircraft fitted with this kind of technology instead of the aviation jet fuel technology or the engine that it currently uses. What would be the difference? What would be the benefits? Would there be cost savings? Would tickets become cheaper? Would it be safer? Tell us about that.
So the first implementation for civil aviation wouldn't be on a jet plane just because those fly at high altitudes, and a hydrogen fuel cell is an air breathing system, so you don't get as much oxygen at higher altitudes, and you have to put in an electric air compressor. So the first implementation would be smaller aircraft, let's say 10 to 50 seat aircraft that are flying at 10 to 25,000 feet, which is very implementable. And even though your experience is currently, I sit on a plane with hundreds of other people, when I fly an airplane, I sit on an airplane with very few people or not as many people. So you can have an alternative regional aircraft market, which is flying smaller planes to airports which are even closer to where you live. So there isn't a requirement to have to go into Delhi International Airport, which can be left for the big jets for the international flights.